Join us in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Public comment. Old business. Set public hearing to amend Bloomfield City Ordinance 65.01 by adding 75 Franklin Street. Vehicles traveling west of Franklin Street shall stop at Madison Street intersection. Move to approve.
It needs to be set for June 21st, 7 o'clock.
But how do I get it off?
I don't know, but I would set
So you got a motion to set that for June 21st? Second. All in favor? All in favor? Aye. Consider approval of purchasing meter replacements for AMI projects.
So in your packet is an estimate. So we have a sole source in Iowa for these particular meters. So it's from Municipal Supply on the water and the electric meters, and from Grubner on the gas meters. Depending on details from Grubner, but what is in your packet is an estimate of $260,000 for water meters, $196,525 for electric meters. On the water meters, that's I believe a conservative estimate, because we estimated a lot of commercial meter replacement that I don't think we're going to have to do, and we estimated at high end. This is below our.
I don't know how to turn it off.
Yeah, what we were talking about last year. You have to take any questions?
So what brand are these again?
Census.
Okay, this is, we have, that's compatible with the meters
It's what we
that have,
currently
right?
use for our meter reading system and for our water meters right now.
And the research on their lifespan, you feel confident that this will be
It'll be compatible whenever we go to complete auto read, that it'll be.
It will. The only change we need is, we don't need any change in the meter infrastructure. What we'll need is to add a radio tower and some software on the base end. But this will get us to the point where we'll collect more data, and more importantly, we'll be able to drop our read time down from right now 2 people for 3 days to 1 person for 1.5 day.
what we're trying to get.
Motion to approve the meter replacement project.
I'll make a motion for a second.
Any more
Darren?
discussion?
John?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Earl?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Consider approval of quote for installation of meters for the AMI project.
We have, we've got estimates from 3 different companies. If you pull up in your packets, there's one that's called the estimate summary. So we sent the same amount of information to each of the 3 companies and asked them to put together estimates. We know that we don't have hard numbers on exactly how many meters they're going to replace, but we give them our best guess. We had Chapman Metering come in at $100,705 to do the work. Lyman LLC at $171,555, and Utiliuse at $242,000, $168.70. But there's some notes I want to make. With the Chapman Metering, they didn't provide any numbers on what it would cost to replace the meters. water meter is gonna have to be replaced. And they only gave us a $1 per hour figure. But based on that, I estimated about $30,000, give or take, but it's my estimate, not theirs. So 30,000 of that 100,000 is my guess based on their paper figures. Utility use, they estimated, they included replacement costs for all commercial and industrial water meters, which is 240 meters. Excuse me, 480 meters. And we think there's about 10 that need to be replaced. So if you take that figure off, it drops about, drops $71,203 from their estimate, which puts them at $170,695. They also had a much more complete package that references, they had.
Yeah.
Right. And they also had estimates in there for overhead and line items for overhead, gave their plan and approach. And we've been talking about it, feel that's the company that they think you should go with. Versus the one sheet estimate from the other.
What was Chapman's total?
Chapman was 100,705, but again, their numbers weren't correct and they didn't provide an estimate on what it would take to replace water meters, and that's one of the most expensive parts of the whole process.
Really, then it should between utilize and Lyman, that way we're.
Yeah, and if you take out the over estimate on the commercial and industrial water meters, utility use comes in underneath Lyman by about $1,500. Excuse me, about $500. That's pretty close. But they had you can see a very complete packet in the program outline.
How fast can they do it?
It's probably going to be a 3 to 4 month process. They said if everything went like clockwork, it'd be 2.5 months, but they expect it'll take a little longer. My guess is we would start. Part of the reason we did the meter order today is because the electric meters take 6 to 8 weeks to get in. So we're looking at probably starting in mid-August, early September. Get it wrapped up before the year end.
Anybody got any more questions on the installing of the meters? Entertain a motion.
Is this, they're gonna install all of them, we aren't gonna do it at all? Yeah. Right.
We might help on the commercial and industrial water meters simply because we gotta work with the customers and they've got very specific requirements for when they want the water on. But yeah, otherwise.
So we can drop off costs on whatever we contribute to.
Right.
And that's in the packet.
Yes. Yes. These are all based on unit prices, so even though the full numbers
That's
are.
probably a
unit
max.
prices.
This is cheaper than doing it ourselves.
You know, we looked at doing it ourselves and we figured it was gonna take, it's all about how you wanna deploy guys and you wanna pitch in if you want, but I don't know that it's cheaper, but we think it'll get done faster and accurately all at once, all at the same time with the same approach. They suggested, they produced the files, they manage contacting the homeowners. I mean, they come into the whole bit, they do the promotion so that everybody's aware of what's going on. A lot of skill sets that we're not prepared to do right now. I'm not saying we couldn't get there, but we're not there right now.
We're gonna not get that while we're doing that.
Right. Then we have plenty of other stuff.
Right.
My experience with this is scheduling and the customer interaction is actually pretty time consuming. And sometimes it's a lot of off hours.
Are we voting on the full estimate, or are we voting on the 170,000?
So my recommendation is that you vote on the contractor based on their unit pricing, and we'll work out the unit detail, with the cap of probably 200,000 is the cap, but it's unit pricing and with the assumption that
Utility use as the cheapest unit for us. They included a lot of units that we're not gonna use.
I'll make a motion to go with utility use to install it.
Second. Any more discussion?
Earl, excuse me, Earl,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
John.
New business, consider approval of resolution for dangerous buildings.
this we're looking at 113 South Madison. This is what allows us to begin the process to go in and either secure the building, stabilize it, demo it, take ownership. This is the starting point. They've already been notified and on April 20th, they were notified that we needed them to take action, and they have not yet taken any action. So I'm just asking for a resolution to formalize the process and move forward. The other building owner has shown a willingness to work with us and/or the building for 113. So I don't feel at this point it's warranted to take the same action with that building owner. I think once we do this, we can work with that building owner on the common wall to get it stabilized.
Move to approve the resolution.
Any more discussion?
Scott,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes. Consider and approve consent to assign solar power services agreement from Forefront Power LLC to Midwest Energy Finance LLC.
So Forefront wants to sell the PPA back to Midwest Energy Finance, which is the subsidiary of Iowa Wind and Solar, which is now going by the DBA of Solar Ray, I think. But the contract, the PPA contract basically says that we're obligated to consent to the assignment, barring any special, unless we have particular reasons that we can't, right? Unless we can give reason for not providing the consent.
Just a change of ownership.
Just change of ownership.
This isn't, no negotiation price-wise on,
There may still be some on those outstanding issues that we've talked about, but it'll be the current contract right now and then an opportunity to look at those external.
so we can amend the current contract to fit
Yes,
the new owner and ourselves.
but they need to have right now they can't do that because it's not there.
So we gotta do this first to do the other.
Right.
Move to approve the consent to assignment.
Second. Any more discussion?
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Jack.
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Consider and discuss permits, driveway and fences with Robert Riley.
So, yeah, my question on my driveway, we have a shared driveway with the property next to us. And we are considering widening our driveway. It would probably be 16 feet, we'd probably cut off of the curb and, put a probably approach or, eat or whatever you wanna call that, going into the driveway. But my question is, I'd like to put gravel past that point in the driveway if that's feasible. Or, cause you know, I've heard either or, I have to do concrete all the way in my driveway. So I don't know exactly what, process I would have to go through to try to get a variance on that.
The variance is what you would have to do to get that. And that would be something that would go to the Board of Adjustments. The city council has no position to take on it because it's not their responsibility. Okay. So what would have to be done is that you go before the Board of Adjustments, they would make that decision, it would be a final decision. And instructions established by state statute, among other things, recognizes that there needs to be a demonstration of a proof or a proof of assertion of a financial impingement. In other words, is this something that it is unreasonable from the standpoint that it is extraordinarily financially unreasonable? Those are typically how you would look at issues like this and go before the Board of Adjustments in any case, any place in the state.
So to cut the curb and add a driveway, how, is it state now that a person has to have concrete all the way? Or can there be gravel for part of it?
Let Chris talk about the zoning issue.
Right, so it's, in your packets, I've put the copy of the ordinance, and it's from 165.13, number 4. Parking area surfacing and maintenance, off-street parking areas shall be surfaced with Portland cement, concrete, or asphaltic material, or shall be dust-proof in some other manner as may be approved by the council, and must be maintained in a dust-free condition. So based on that, that's why I denied the permit for gravel, because it was, as I read this, I thought it had to be concrete or asphalt unless council gave approval of some other dust control method.
And that would have to come normally in the form of an ordinance. The first step before it comes back to the council would be is if there's any issue that is, from my perspective, Mike can suggest is, I think you need to have a determination by the Board of Adjustments first as to whether the variance is appropriate or not, standpoint of standards.
Let them make their decision, and if they allow it, they don't have to change the ordinance to fit their decision.
No, you have
Just
to
do an individual basis.
You have to do it on an individual basis, and if you want to change the standard, that would be something that the council would otherwise do.
Where's the location of this?
610 North Washington.
Or they should start a precedent.
I don't know, we already have numerous gravel driveways in town.
We're looking at what the ordinance is. I mean, if you want to change the standard, you need to change the ordinance.
Well, I just don't want a double standard, because we already have them.
Well,
So here's the thing, the people that have gravel driveways, now can we enforce the code to make them?
they're grandfathered.
Now, if I understood hearing the ordinance correctly, was it has to be either asphalt, concrete, or to have dust control. So if a person put in certain gravel that would, even, you know, for dust control, would that or would that not be the same issues?
I think that you have to make the presentation to the Board of Adjustments. The council right now has no position about this because this is a variance request.
Okay.
That's something that needs to be clarified in the future if people are going to make these kinds of requests, and these are really Board of Adjustment responsibilities.
And how does one go about doing that?
File I guess it's a permit or an application, I guess it would be considered.
Yes, you need to write a letter stating what you're wanting, why, and bring it into City Hall and pay $25 for the hearing with the Board of Adjustment, and then we'll schedule it.
And petitions. Neighbors petition.
what now? He was, okay.
That'll all be explained.
That'll be explained when he talks to the Board of Adjustments.
There is a notification requirement for something like this of neighbors too.
Yeah, that's what he said, somebody, you gotta get a certain percentage of your neighbors to okay all of it too, but that's all that falls under the Board of Adjustments.
That'll be explained at the time of the
Yeah, so
application.
that's all part of that process. It says driveway and fences, do you have a fence to talk about?
We took care of that issue, so that's already resolved.
That,
That's everything I have.
okay,
Stick around for the next piece.
thank you. Consider or discuss construction permits, fees, and process.
Well, I put this on the agenda from the standpoint that we have a couple of things going on here. One thing Darren mentioned at the last meeting is that probably ought to look at consolidation of some permits where, you know, they're coming in for something, you know, I don't want to nickel and dime them. But at the same time, I think that what we need to do is have a formal process where we go about making decisions as to what our permit costs are and what our fee costs should be. My experience with this is generally we look at what neighboring communities do to determine whether it makes sense. We also would need to look at some of our costs as it relates to just administrating these things. We have some permits that are $5. And trust me, that doesn't get you very far down the road as far as
Christmas time.
well, as far as anybody doing the work. And I would bet that some of these fees and permit costs have been on the books for so long that even the discussion about inflationary increases would be silly. We know that that's the case. So in that particular case, in those particular cases, I want just formal direction that we would come forward administratively to make to give you a recommendation of fee and permit increases. Because I don't think we're gonna see any reductions. Because it's been a long time. Oh, we have permits, do you have a sense for how many we have in?
Excavation.
Chris, I mean,
Excavation, curb cut, what excavation is in any public, like streets or right away, and then curb cut, building permit. That covers most things. There's a sign permit, which is technically a building permit, but we have a separate form for some reason. And then there's a certificate of zoning compliance for making sure the appropriate business is in a commercial or business district or an industrial district. And then
we got hookup fees too.
yeah,
We need a fee schedule is what we need.
That hookup thing he's looked at too, we need to go through all
I would
that.
include that in there. We got hookup fees. I mean, it's probably been forever since these things have been
That's
revised.
disconnect fees, all the fees need to be revisited.
And only the building permit has the stop work order and the fee assigned for that. The others have a non-assigned fee. Like, so if you do a curb cut without permit, or if you do other, it doesn't have a fine, or section of chapter 116 talks about standard penalty. So that would, I guess, imply you go back to your standard penalty.
I would think a curb cut could be done away with. That should be included in a building permit.
Or excavation.
Well, when you apply for a building permit, there ought to be a list of questions saying, what processes are you
Are you
doing?
gonna cut the curb? Okay, yeah.
I think that the curb cut generally is when somebody's replacing a water service or sewer service or gas service or something like that, and they're going out in the street is where then that gets done, and then maybe it doesn't get patched back correctly. I think that's a big
That's
piece of
also
the
still
curb.
kind of a double standard with the excavation permit when you're crossing the street.
Well,
I think
yeah, you could combine them to where.
I think that in being sensitive to what you had said even last week, I think we would concur with that. We just need to
You
have.
don't
it
need
as a
three
compromise.
permits in
Right.
one project.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, what we are trying to do is isolate things from the street to the sidewalk and from, as one permit, and from the sidewalk in as the other. Distinguishes Danny's work from Chris's work, as we've said all along. I think one of the things that we need to do, though, is not only look at these costs, because as far as doing these permits, but we probably ought to look at the fines too. So I think we would present you a very comprehensive approach about all of this, realizing it isn't gonna happen in 2 weeks, but it would be something that we would probably present to you over the next couple of months. But we do want to take a comprehensive approach to this. Now, the last thing about process is concerned is I was intending to talk about this from a standpoint of enforcement of property maintenance code, particularly as it relates to abandoned houses and things of that sort. The mayor put a different agenda item on here for that discussion as far as legal services is concerned, so I'll just defer to that agenda item at that time. So all I'm asking for is a voice vote to say, go ahead and do this.
So we got a motion to give direction to have the staff look into the permits and fees. Come back
and have
and
discussion.
come back in a
We'll give you a
month or two with a proposal to move forward with or to go over.
So moved.
Second. Any more discussion?
Jack?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Earl?
Yes.
Darren?
Consider and discuss RFQ for attorney to handle derelict housing, abandoned properties. I put that on there. I just think this is kind of a separate from everything else. And Chris has went around and found some properties that we looked at, or he's looked at, that need to be addressed. So I was wanting to maybe send out RFQs to different firms with just them particular properties kind of in mind, and come back with a bid to take care of that, and kind of get the prices from them to move forward in that direction on the housing. Because there's some other firms that do a lot of that and have more experience, and I think it would be good for us to reach out to maybe somebody else to help us with that versus what we did. And I mean, we'll let the ones that help us now, we'll give them an RFQ too, but just reach out to other ones around the area to help.
So what will this entail? I mean, do they start to finish and do the notification?
It'll be a start to finish. What do we got? 6 to 8?
Yeah, depending on what level of go after, but there's at least 3 or 4 homes that are just, they're need dealt with immediately because they're in sorry shape. And we've got some other issues that we could address too, up to 8 houses.
Obviously, there's a first and second priority. If you approve this, what we would do is just put together the RFQ, send them out, bring them back to you.
Anybody got any questions about it?
Well, I guess from past history, I feel like the attorneys we have done a good job of handling that for us.
Have the current attorney's been notified of these houses?
Public comments are over.
So I,
It's a normal job then. Been on the work.
I couldn't hear.
I said, to me, it's a normal job bid. I mean, that's all. I'm assuming that's all you're asking.
I'm not saying who we've had do it, didn't do a good job. I'm just wondering, can we get more bang for our buck? It's just a small project just to put out, just to see if, compare and just, kind of like we did with the sewer deal. We put that out, RFQs to, not everything else. It's just, I think it's just smart business. Once in a while, it just keeps everybody honest.
I see no problem.
So we got a motion to go that direction.
Move to request RFQ.
Second.
Any more discussion?
John,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Earl,
No.
Consider and discuss curb cuts with Josh Sinnott.
So I asked to come in front of you guys today because I put a driveway in at 415 North Washington. Did not get the proper permit, did not even consider it. Been here 12 years and haven't really had much thought of it. Upon doing our driveway, DPW came down, shut the crew down, said you're no longer allowed to work, you don't have the proper permits. I went to the city, filed the permit. He approved said permit, but denied my curb cut. After a few discussions, he said that curbs could only be 28 feet wide in the city. Requested I have to go through the Board of Adjustment. I went to the city, so I wrote my letter, paid Sandy the $25. He said that's what I had to do. Further came out later, I had to come out and get more petitions from my neighbors, 250 yards from my property line, asking permission to do work on my property. Got the proper signatures, turned it all in, and was approved to have a meeting with the Board of Adjustment. 2 or 3 days later, I get a call from Chris Ball to inform me that they read the ordinances wrong and I no longer had to get approval. So before I could do all that, Turner Concrete, who did my driveway, had to finish the driveway to the curb. So that way I didn't have a gaping hole in my driveway so I could park in and out. Chris calls and says, do you want your permit or do you want to go to the Board of Adjustment? I said, well, obviously I want my permit. And he said, I no longer have to get a special permit for curb cutting. My building permit for my driveway would suffice that curb cutting as well. I called Turner Concrete and got a bid to see how much it's gonna cost now to come back while they're in the height of their concrete season and tear out part of my driveway, cut the curb back to the seam as Chris said the ordinance has said needs to be done now. And it's looking at $1,100 for them to come through. I would ask the city help reimburse some of that due to the fact that the ordinances were not read properly and understood. I understand Chris, when he called me, said that Danny's new, he didn't know, I didn't get my permit in time, and Chris would have told him. But in the words of your DPW, ignorance is not an excuse for them not to know the ordinances. To this day, your DPW still has not called and said that he messed up or made a mistake. He had Chris do it. So I am asking that the city help me out with this $1,100 bill due to the fact that the misunderstanding of the ordinance is read by their DPW.
Can I make a comment about this?
Yeah.
We did make a mistake, there's no question about it. The fact of the matter is that we were brought this issue under the gun as the construction was commencing. Normally, we probably would have been able to answer this correctly if Chris were here. I think Gabe's first week of work, he came and asked me about it. We stumbled around trying to figure out what the ordinance is. My experience in general is that these curb cuts with other zoning codes in other cities I worked with are typically with the 2 cars. Not our case here at Silence, as far as it relates to the zoning code that we have. I don't disagree that a hardship was suffered by Mr. Senate because of this. Simultaneously, if a permit were filed and we were given enough advance warning that we could research this and make a decision that wasn't while the contractors were already on the site, we probably would have made the right decision and saved everybody a lot of problems.
Did you have enough time? You stopped my workers from working. You said that you had to go over that contract.
I stopped my work to try and figure out what to do.
Well, it's not your job to do that. That's what we hired a DPW for. We
No,
didn't know
we
our
didn't hire the DPW to do that. We have Chris to do that.
the DPW is just over Chris. He's the
No,
whole
he's
thing.
not. No, he's not. This responsibility is something that we are still trying to get through here. But the fact of the matter is that all I'm saying, I'm not saying that the council should or should not help Mr. Senate out. I'm just saying that there's 2 sides to this story. And the fact of the matter is that normally we would expect to have a permit on file for up to a month for us to respond. We didn't have that. We had hours, not even hours. So we were trying to do the best we can. We did make a mistake. I don't deny that. But the fact is that we probably wouldn't have made a mistake if we had the permits filed in a timely manner, in a way that we could have responded. We probably would have been able to respond in 3 or 4 or 5 days, given the complexity of this issue. But Chris wasn't here. We were just scrambling to try and get that decision. Our whole situation here is that if we followed the code, and received this in a reasonably timely manner, we would have been able to respond in an appropriate way. We didn't because the contractors were on site. We didn't even have a permit when this project started. I'm not saying that you shouldn't give him consideration. I'm just saying that this is the side of the story that we have to deal with likewise. And there is a credibility issue that we all have. We know that. But we're also asking at least some reasonable cooperation from the citizens for which we have to administrate this code. That's all I'm saying.
The codes haven't been followed real well for a while, so I mean, it was kind of a new thing, kind of we was bringing back and enforcing too, so it wasn't. Now, how many years has it went by when nobody's got a building permit?
And we've had that discussion here, is the fact is that we've been saying for several months now, that if we're going to start doing this code enforcement, we are going to
And
do
we
it.
knew the process was coming.
Again, I'm
Be
not.
some growing pains.
I'm not
involved
saying
in it.
that Mr. Senate shouldn't have some alleviation here. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that this could have all been averted if we had a permit filed in a timely manner.
So, again, if you look back, just go back, I know Mayor, you were involved in that, and we had a call that time. So if you look too, also with, talk about curb cut permit and a stop work order. So when a stop work order is done, then actually the fee for the permit is $100. Okay. Josh has yet to pay that, so I know he's only paid $5 for the permit fee instead of the $100. If you go curb cutting permit without doing a proper curb cut permit, the fee, according to city ordinance 114 standard penalty, the fee for that is $500.
That's not fee, it's a fine.
It's a fine. It's actually a fine or up to 30 days.
We didn't
So-
cut the curb.
So the curb's cut.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I stopped them and cut. They cut down the street and I stopped them. They didn't take it out, but they cut it 3 foot. So I mean, so you have that penalty fee, for $500. He still hasn't paid the permit fee of $100.
You told me it was waived.
But, so it's just whatever you're gonna do. That's why we're talking about these ordinances, because that stuff's still not in there. Now, we tried to do our due diligence, like I said, when we did the stop work order, came to the office, he came, got the permit, we started working on that. myself and Gary's working on the ordinance book, trying to find it in there. Again, we had, instead of 30 days to do a permit like we're supposed to according to the ordinance, we were trying to do it in 30 minutes because they were on lunch and trying to get the permit done. So we made the best call we could make based off the information we had at the time. And of course, we erred inside judgment, not cutting the permit, cutting the curb and went with that. So now he wants to, and I'm fine with cutting the curb and changing that, but it's just, but also on the other side is and we're learning from this, from the time that we had with Josh and after that permit thing, I can guarantee we probably had an influx of
Got 5 permits.
5 permits that next day.
You were the
So, and I
I was-
talked to
I was
Josh about that, and I had to go out there too, because again, we were doing some zoning issues, because again, we got into lot line size and how close he's doing his driveway to the neighbor's ground and all that kind of stuff. So I actually went out there and measure that to make sure he's within the ordinance for that. So I mean, we did a lot of things in that short bit of time. So it's not like we're trying to penalize him at all. We were trying to make our due diligence, do it within 30 minutes versus 30 days. So,
But real quick, did you not or did you not tell me that was waived $100 fee? Not that I'm not paying my bills, but you said it was a waived fee, is that correct?
I did not say it's waived. I said I thought they were gonna talk about the next council, because the mayor's the only one, remember, they could waive the fee, not.
Yeah, you told me it was waived, I didn't have to pay that fee that day.
Okay. I didn't say I didn't have to pay it that day, but, I mean, it was waived, but, so, but still, there's a separate fine for the.
What I discussed with him was we would do the $5 and would worry about whether we was gonna do the 100 late.
Okay.
That's what I said.
Right, that's what I was saying.
And the officer said it was waived, so.
I would suggest I think we did send out something in the bills about people need to get permits. We need to give them a little bit of a heads up that we're gonna enforce permits now. And there's obviously a little shared responsibility here. Stakes on both ends, so I would be all right with splitting the cost. The project.
And the cost was 1,100?
1,100, yes.
And waive any penalties.
You wanna read that?
If we waive the penalties, that's half, so. But I mean, I guess I'm like Darren,
And I don't think
or
30
it's
days
all
for a
new,
building
it's
permit
new
is
to everybody,
excessive.
Danny's
I
new,
think
it's
it
new
is.
to, what we're doing is new to, it's not new, it's just new that we're enforcing it. And I think, to be fair, there's been a few other permits that's kind of been, people been worked with a little bit, not knowing or making, I've told quite a few people that I see doing something, I said, hey, before DPW gets here, you better go get a permit. So, I mean, I just think,
Darren, your point about 30 days is a long time. I would grant you for something like this, but if you have a commercial building that came in, or if you had some big house or something like that, it will take you that. I think the point being is that we are not looking to just say, well, we'll talk to you in 30 days. I mean, we want to get it off our desk as much as reasonably possible too. Like I said before, I think that this could have been rectified in 2, 3, 4 days, but not 30.
I think a fair time period on a building permit should not exceed a week.
I disagree with you, because if we get a complicated building, how do we
That's a
deal?
complicated permit, not a simple home.
I think maybe that could be talked about when you guys do
We
your
can
permits. and
split it,
versus-
we can split it up, but I think that 30 days, to be honest with you, is precedent if you've got a good building coming.
On a commercial project, yes, but on a private building permit, somebody's putting up a fence or a driveway or building a garage, I think a week is sufficient.
I don't disagree with
But
that.
back to that, I mean, like I said, there was issues, you didn't get the permit in advance, and we went the wrong direction with the ordinance, I think.
Yeah.
To make it all fair. And then we put out a warning in the bills that said, hey, you need building permits. Not just start enforcing when there hasn't been any. Erring on the side of caution on that one would have been to go ahead, I think. to avoid the financial hardship.
I just want, if I may. Okay. Danny's he's catching the brunt of this, and I just wanted to be known that I asked him, I was driving out of town and went past Josh's place and saw it and asked Danny to go take a look, so he wasn't hot rodding over there on his own. And I was in meetings all that day and they couldn't call me, so I just wanted known that it wasn't just him going out.
No, I'm not necessarily coming down on Danny, it's just we need to ease into stuff, no.
You have two issues before you. One, do you want to give him alleviation as far as his cost is concerned? And two, what do you want to do about the fine?
I'll stand my neck out. I'm gonna make a recommendation that the city reimburses him $500 for the error that we made. It will help soften the blow for what he did. So I'm gonna make that
And
recommendation.
alleviate the fine.
And that would be a separate issue. I would.
I can deal with that, alleviate the fine, we give him $500.
So we got a motion to give him $500 to help with his driveway and waive any fines
So moved.
to go with it.
How would you feel about
I
that?
appreciate that.
You wouldn't hate our guts for that, would you, Danny?
Oh, I'm very
Okay.
please.
You know, we're really all trying to come to the
Absolutely.
next step.
Appreciate you guys taking a step and.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you'll get the permit next
I
month.
will, hey, see Danny, if I get any more, I'll get you permission.
Hey, you're out there in the public once in a while. Spread the word if you see
You got
something.
it. I think it's helped. I mean, what'd you say, 5, 10 permits already?
But just to clarify this, because you're talking about the driveway and the graveling or the paving of the driveway, you actually get that permit from Chris. So there's two things going on here.
I'm sorry, every time you talk about doing stuff, you go through the DPW is what it's always been. You go see Ted Henderson, is what you've done. So,
Actually, you come see Sandy and she sends you to one.
that's what it's been. Like, you just go see, walk into Ted's office and tell him what you need.
What's gonna happen is, just so everybody knows, what's gonna happen is that we're gonna have one administrative assistant that's gonna be shared between Chris and Danny. So you won't have to go to Sandy in the future. We're in the process of doing that hiring, and come about a month from now or so, you will go to that administrative assistant, not Sandy, and she or he will make a decision as to whose permits and who gets what and all of this stuff. So it won't even be Sandy anymore.
Sounds good. You're gonna have to unlock one of the doors.
I need
So we need a second.
I'll second.
Is there any more discussion?
Earl,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Scott. Yes. Darren.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for being our example.
I'm here for you.
Discuss Bloomfield Code of Ordinances 165.062J, customary home occupation.
You wanna start sitting up here, Chris, because you got a whole bunch of stuff going on.
So here's where we start the heads up, folks.
Okay.
We got the next 5 items are, these are issues that have come up in the past 3 weeks or so, and they're ones that are pretty black and white types of issues, so I thought it'd be a good thing for us to just talk about and say, here's what the current ordinance is, here's some questions I have. Here's, if I thought maybe a recommendation would be to look at another community's ordinances, I've provided that. So, with this, we'll start with the first one, the home occupations. Pull up my notes here, sorry. So right now, the way it reads, and you have copies of the relevant ordinances, but I'll summarize it for you. Only occupants of the home can operate a business in a home. Accessory buildings can't be used for businesses. Other than an unlit sign, evidence that a business is present in the residence, you shouldn't see any evidence that there's a business there. And all the home occupations require a certificate of compliance issued by the city. I don't know the last time we ever went through that process, right? Issuing a certificate of compliance. just some examples of what we see when we look, when I drive around and look. We've got construction or contractors with employees using accessory buildings as a base of operations in residential areas. We've got non-occupants of homes operating a business in an accessory building. We've got businesses with clear evidence of operation outside the home and including items for sale in a right of way. And like I said, I don't remember the last time we had a certificate of compliance application. So I'm just looking for guidance.
So let's back up to that last example. If I put my car out in the grass with a for sale sign, is that what you're talking about, or is it something different? Is it somebody that's selling
We got 10
widgets?
cars out there.
Right, so I think
Flat tire.
there's three things happening there when you put your car out beside the road, right? You're violating the home, home occupation. You've got your car in the city's right of way, which you're not supposed to do. And if it's up parked on the grass, it's not in a paved parking area, right? So there's three things that are an issue with that. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm looking for direction. I'm not saying I'm gonna go down there and start towing cars that are for sale on somebody's yard, but I would like to know what direction you wanna head, and you don't have to give me definitive answers right now, but it's discussion time, right? And I'm not looking to go shut down businesses, but I do regularly get complaints about 2 or 3 very specific businesses in town that are operating in residential neighborhoods.
Using their yards as sales.
You're not talking about garage sales, because it's kind of heavy.
Not talking about garage.
This would be a bad weekend if we go down there.
Just think of the revenue.
Actually, I'll tell you what, in cities that I've worked in, garage sales become problematic because, there are some people that have garage sales 6 and 7 times a year because that's how they make their money. They're not selling their stuff, they're getting stuff and selling stuff. So sometimes if people start really making those home occupations, you start regulating that too. But realistically, the stuff that we get the complaints about is people selling stuff out in their yards. Just not a garage sale.
You got 3 4-wheelers, 4 lawnmowers, and 5 trucks. That's a used car.
Camper.
Do you draw the line on whether it's on the city's right of way or in the yard,
We have problems with both as far as the ordinance.
backyard?
I mean, there are homes that have got 5 or 6 cars in the backyard that clearly haven't moved in years.
That's also almost a different issue. I mean, we're talking about sales stuff. If you got abandoned vehicles in your yard, that's a big problem. Part of that is how do you determine they're abandoned? Are they properly? Some of this is going to wind up having to coordinate with Sean about vehicles and registrations and things of that sort. So it's not just an enforcement issue related to what Chris is doing. But these are issues. These are issues that many cities grapple with. And the question is what kind of community do you want? Do you want to start cleaning this up, or is this adequate? Is this fun? So,
My opinion, it needs cleaned up. So what, do you have a recommendation?
On this one, I don't have a recommendation. I mean, there's some things that I think that are, like, it would be pretty easy for me to go to, someone that's got their vehicles in the right of way and say, get them out of the right of way. I mean, that's from just a safety perspective, that makes sense.
Since they can't be in the yard.
Right, if we start tackling vehicles in the yard, believe me, we got some work to do. There's a lot of work to do there.
we got streets that we can't just find very easily where the street ends and the yard begins to. Some of it's been gravelled by the private folks. And some of it's in our right of way and some of it's on the property too. But then that's not really a legal driveway.
So ease into this and pick the worst ones and
Well, I can tell you.
start, or put this in the RFQ?
I did have, I I can tell you that 6, 7 months ago, I had a complaint. There was a business that was advertising, had a profile in the newspaper. That business was based on an accessory building in a residential neighborhood. Someone read the article in the newspaper and said, hey, came to me and said, you can't do that. So I went and had a conversation. That business moved. Then the homeowner wanted to bring in another business to replace that one, and I said, you can't do it. So, you know, that's been the first, there was some back and forth there, but in the end, they understood that's the rules.
So,
In the house, it's gonna be put it in on one floor. In the garage. So you haven't looked at any other towns as far as what they, I mean,
On
is
this one, I haven't. I kind of want to get some direction. Whether you want me to.
I'm
Is this
gonna
something you
ask
want?
you, I
would
hate
you
to,
put
I hate
this
to
in the
delve into it.
RFQ?
Pardon?
Would you make part of this the RFQ for?
I think this is something that we could go get some examples from other communities.
We can research that. or
If
take
we
care
have
of
somebody
ourselves.
that's, has an established business in a building on their property, they've been operating this for quite a while. It's definitely gonna be a financial hardship if we kind of gotta move out.
Well, there's circumstances here as far as it relates to, is it grandfathered or is it a non-conforming use? That can be, addressed. Can you move them out? I mean, a lot of this is gonna probably take some case by case work as to determine whether in fact we have standing, because some of this has been going on so long that there might be a legal argument to say,
Established.
I've been here for 10 years, now you're gonna try to kick me out.
yeah,
Okay.
and there may be legal standing here that they say you can't do that, but I think the real point though is that at some point, if you want to address this, you gotta draw the line and say no more.
Starting, okay.
Did they go get a permit when they did, did they go through all that steps and they let them do it?
Right.
Well, that's the other thing, I mean, do we have any permits on file?
One time that went to the variance board,
So,
and
so some of them may actually not be legally, not legal because they've already been approved to do what
back
they're
in the nineties,
doing.
we had.
Well, they would
went
be
to all our
legal.
neighbors and
Yeah, they would
they
have,
said, no problem, we don't care, and so they allowed it.
they
Those
don't
things would
meet
be
the
legal.
ordinance, but they're grandfathered in under the.
Well, if they went through, say, the Board of Adjustments, and the Board of Adjustments says, yeah, go ahead, or if the Plan Commission said, yeah, go ahead, they are legal, they're not grandfathered. That's not a non-conforming use. But if they never had a permit and started doing this, there may be leverage there because they never got a permit.
That's what I'm saying. If you-
Are they charging sales tax and have they cleaned it to the state?
You know, I mean, there's all kinds of ramifications here if they start to run it.
Or we're getting our tax money out of. Keep them the weed in the backyard. Okay, all right. So
It's still gonna be.
Are you looking for some kind of a direction on this specific one today,
So
Chris?
there's two things that I would like to know, I guess, right now. Forgetting about what exists at the
Okay.
moment. Moving forward, do we want to make it known that these are the rules that we are going by? And two, do you want me to go get examples from other communities to see how they've dealt with this?
That sure give us something to work from.
if you wanted, I would think maybe if you wanted to get something started now, you could use this as a base, get some examples, and then we could, if we need to change something, we could set a public hearing and change this.
Let me say one other thing about that. If this is a zoning code change, it goes to the planning commission first, and they have the public hearings. We could really start, this list could really start to have the planning commission do some work here. Realize that I think that how from what I've observed, how we've done some business around here in the past, we probably bypassed the plan commission appropriately.
But this is residential.
Right, yeah, but anything, 165 is the planning and zoning chapter, so pretty much anything in there.
Makes no
could-
difference.
There's residential and start falls under there.
So we maybe need to have a meeting with them.
Yeah, they have regularly scheduled meetings. We haven't had anything to discuss at them, but they meet do you remember, Sandy?
It's
Last
Third Tuesday?
Tuesday or
third Tuesday or fourth Tuesday, one or the other.
the last.
Last Tuesday.
Or last Tuesday, yeah.
Maybe we need to have a
Take this-
discussion, maybe we need to
Well, I
have a
think what we need
discussion.
to do is have you say, go ahead and take the plan commission. Yeah, we'll start to work with them.
But in the meantime, we just follow what we have. I mean, I guess that was what I would, follow what we have and then meet with them
See what other cities do.
and look at some other examples, and then they have, if they want something changed, they'll have to change it, but in the meantime, we have to follow what they give us.
I think probably the thing to
Do
go
they change it,
along,
or do they recommend it?
they
Recommend we have a change
to you.
ordinance?
It ultimately comes back to you, but they go through the hearing process and the review process. Because these can get quite lengthy and you don't want to add that into this meeting. I think first though, as far as this business is concerned, to go along with what you were saying, Darren, is that to ease into this, we probably need to get through some sort of process of doing notification as opposed to saying, oh, by the way, here's a ticket. I think that's the process that we would have to go as far as easing into this, but I don't know how long you give a notice before you say, oh, by the way, after 60 days, you're in trouble or something like that. We're gonna have to work that out too. And it probably in many respects is based upon the severity of the problem. I mean, there might be some serious things that you gotta get.
For certain businesses, it's a big difference.
Oh, whether it's business or other violations.
It might be a case by case thing too.
Yeah, but you wanna get that kind of standardized, case by case.
So a guy with one car or two cars would be different than if the guy's got a business somewhere and he's gotta relocate, you know what I mean? I mean, you wanna get it done in a timely manner, but it don't take near as long to tow a car as it does to pick up loose shop. Finding a new location and going through all that, I mean,
I think
We don't
probably what
want-
we'll do is advise you on some of this stuff as to what we're doing here. But, you know, to be sensitive to this, I mean, we've been talking about this for months, and now time's come.
So to be clear, what I'm hearing is, enforce ordinance on new businesses, new home-based businesses. Maybe get word out to some of these folks that are like saying the right of way, that kind of thing. And then send the issue to the planning and zoning commission with, that, bring a recommendation back to the council, is that?
if there's an existing business or something that's in a, you know, unsafe facility or something, you know, we need to look at.
Then you got building issues, you know, that, all this does get intertwined.
Yeah, you may find 3 or 4 different things wrong with the same place. You have to deal with separately, is different.
Did I get it right?
I agree.
Might go ahead and check and see what some of the other cities do.
Yeah, we will.
Well, let's start with the comprehensive plan. You work off the comprehensive plan. So any changes would have to go to planning and zoning commission. They would look at those, make recommendations, and then obviously if you want to change an ordinance, you have the authority to make that change.
Is it my understanding that in Iowa, cities under 5,000 don't need to have a comp plan?
That's correct.
And that's part of the problem here is we have a zoning code. Zoning codes usually evolve out of a comp plan, but we don't have one.
Well, it's kind of a mini comprehensive plan because it's our ordinances, our code of ordinances that we use for enforcement. So that's the place that we need to start. Use the enforcement to the extent that there may be any requests for any changes.
Right.
Go to P and Z, then come to the council.
Right.
Go and move on.
Go ahead.
Discuss code of ordinances 16506, 16517 requirements for swimming pools.
So again, the same thing, you have a copy of the ordinances. Basically, it says a 6-foot fence is required for swimming pools. Swimming pools are designated as an accessory building or structure, and accessory buildings that are not attached to the main building are required to be in the backyard. So, I mean, you just drive around, there's many pools that are with no fence. And we've got pools in the front yards. There's no distinction between a kiddie wading pool and a full-blown swimming pool in our ordinance, so. I've included a sample from Fairfield and what they're doing, and it basically says any pool that is less than
48 inches. Oh. 18 inches is not a pool.
right,
Right.
right, and if it's up to 40 inches, 4 feet, then you have to have a fence, right? It didn't, I didn't see that it addressed yards.
I think it did it not say be in the front yard.
I don't recall, I'm sorry.
Back, and then that's where the fence is. Then you have the fence requirement with a 5-inch sphere. Make sure that nothing less than 5
Yeah,
inches
right.
get through between the fences.
It's a safety issue, right? I mean,
Oh, it's huge.
Liability, I mean,
Yeah, but.
you've got a 4-foot pool out there and some neighbor kid falls in it.
Is that the city liability, or is that the?
No.
That's your
Right.
homeowner's liability,
Right.
so your homeowner's insurance is gonna,
I'd be more
it's
worried
gonna
about,
tell you what you may or may not do on your property.
I'd be more worried about the under 18-inch pools than a 4-foot pool.
What easier to get in,
Oh,
18 inch
no.
than a 4-foot?
I mean, I'm saying little
Kid,
tiling that they get up
you know,
out all the
somebody-
time.
Little kid could crawl out across the yard and jump in one of them. They're gonna have a hard time getting in a 4-footer.
Well, the issue obviously for an 18-inch pool is a very small wading pool, and if a kid is out and crawling across the yard,
He's still in danger.
mom and dad are probably not taking care of the kid to begin with.
90% of the drownings are because mom and dad wasn't out.
There you go.
So is that something that, you know, you put that, was that the homeowner's responsibility to take care of that, or do we wanna try to?
Well, I think the fencing and the location of the big pools are something that we need to truly address.
I don't think it
think
makes
the
sense to
location-
have it in the front yard.
No,
You know?
the location's huge.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, have it by the front step?
No.
No, but if you don't have a backyard.
Yeah, that's
then
true.
your
Use the boards for the diving board.
If you don't have room in the backyard for a pool, then you probably got setback issues with your backyard to begin with. So you got a non-conforming use.
Depends on where your lot is.
Yeah, I mean, you look at my lot,
You got side yards.
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, normally these things are dictated by front yard, side yard, backyard. Front yard is determined by the building line extended from where it's forward, And put something in the side yard if you want. If you have the room. And we have a lot of, that's why subdivision ordinances are written, to make sure that you have reasonable standards as far as front, side, and rear yards. There may very well be cases where you can't build a pool in the yard that you're in.
It's a case, but I mean, they kind of handle it case by case. But you gotta go down and get a permit to have a pool, and they come and tell you where to put it.
yeah, there's some place to do that.
I mean, that's basically what they do.
No.
So you got a swimming pool permit, you got a pool, that way you know you got a pool.
Well, they'll tell you where you can put
But
it.
yeah, then they tell you where to put it, then
But
they tell
that's-
you what
But that's
requirements.
based upon a standard already existing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a standard, but I'm just saying, like Chris said, he don't have a backyard. So they would come out and try to locate it to where it was in the best position.
Or say no.
Yeah, or say, no, you don't get a pool.
I mean, there's gonna be decisions that have to be made in this community as to whether in fact you wanna allow swimming pools in the front yard. If you wanna say no, then we say no.
Well, even right now, I could interpret it to say no. But it isn't clear to me that a pool is an accessory building or structure exactly. I mean, it doesn't specifically say pools, right? So it's gray.
We need to clarify it.
The problem for me with this whole thing is somebody owns a home and they're responsible and they wanna do something in their home. I don't wanna tell them they can't.
Right.
They're paying taxes, they bought the house. But the other hat is, as a city, we have to make sure that we're watching out for the people that don't take care of their things or their people or their neighbors. So that's tough. That's
We
the
got a
tough
fence around this,
line, right?
we got a fence around the city pool, and they're in there every weekend.
Well, if you look at this, okay, that means we have to have a fence around the pond at the cemetery,
But you know,
right?
no.
No?
But-
It's water.
But you know, Mayor, if you wanna talk about those that are in the pool from the fence over down at the mutual center there, they can be arrested for that.
So can that guy buy pool at
I
one
think your
AM?
point is, right, actually, there are 2 ponds in the city limits, maybe 3 that would require a fence based on that Fairfield rule.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's issues there. I don't think you need to convince ponds.
So I guess what I'm asking is, I think they take the same approach with the last issue.
I don't,
Ultimately,
I
this
think the
goes to
4
planning
foot,
commission,
I think
sir.
the 4 foot's a little much.
Let's take it to the planning commission first. I mean, that's, and you can register your opinions with the planning commission, there's no reason why you can't. There's public hearings here for this stuff.
So this one, I think we probably should just hold off until they decide, or they meet and come back with the recommendations. 'Cause we don't want people building a bunch of fences around town and then they can tear them down.
Well, there still are fence improvements.
You got a grandfather in on swimming pools?
If they're temporary, you know.
Whole other set of variables. Because if
What
I
would be
buy,
considered
if I buy
permanent?
a $150 blow up pool, by the end of the year, it's not gonna be there the next year, right?
But a lot of them above ground 4 footers, I mean, people leave them up year round.
Yeah.
I mean, they're designed to be that way, but they're not. I don't know if they're, they considered
They're not a permanent structure.
permanent. It's
A lot of
permanent.
times they put permanent decking around it.
But if they put it, yeah, that's true, there's
Not me.
a number of those.
Okay.
Then the 4 foot doesn't apply then. Then you're gonna need a fence. And the reason that the 4 foot is there is you can't fall into that
Yeah.
pool. And
Right.
the people that take their ladder off every evening, go put their ladder underneath their deck or in their basement so that somebody can't climb into their pool, but they run through there, they won't need a fence, they're gonna run into a wall around the pool. But you get shorter than that, that's where the kids fall in and drown and there's no fence.
My pool's 48 inches.
Right at
And
it.
I take the last,
Just legal and
no, that's all
outside.
cement.
I didn't know you had a pool.
You know why? It's in my backyard. It's in the front of what's holding right
No, it wouldn't.
50-degree slope.
A pool, but a waterfall.
Man, we
Slip
better
and
get,
slide in the front
hey,
yard.
we better get moving on to chickens.
Yeah, let's go to chickens.
This one doesn't need to go to the planning and zoning commission, I don't think. That's all yours.
Code of ordinances 5505 regarding chickens.
Yeah, this is on you.
Barbecue.
This comes up every year. We've had a couple chicken complaints, and we had a request to consider whether or not we allow chickens. So,
I thought we said an ordinance that there wasn't any chickens.
there is an ordinance that says, but like I said, every year we get asked again if we could allow chickens.
And every year there's a guy that's got a really nice chicken house.
So do you want to keep saying no, or do you want to really?
I don't think we have to say no. We already said no.
Right, I'm just asking if you want to reconsider since we've been asked about it.
If my neighbor had chickens, I wouldn't be too happy about it.
Okay,
I think direction here is to
end of
go by
discussion.
the ordinance we've already got in place.
There you go.
I had to call my button and slid in some newer.
Okay,
Discuss code of ordinances 165-13-4 regarding driveways.
And this is that same issue that we've discussed previously regarding surfacing of driveways.
So that's already, and that's gonna go to the planning commission
yeah,
for discussion.
well, they, not only discussion, but recommendation and public hearing. Do you want it, do you want to send a message to the planning commission that you would like to change this, or you want to keep it? I mean, whatever the plan commission says in its recommendation to you, you do not have to abide by it. You
And for them to exercise their ability to provide us with information, I think that makes good sense.
information and recommendation, but you don't have to follow the recommendation.
That's how it is. I mean, seal coat, I would be.
Well, you could spray the pest control like everybody does in the county.
How much dust are you really creating in
That's-
the parking
that's the
lot? I mean, the hospital has a large gravel parking lot. I don't know that, Chris, does it dust you out?
No, but I have told them that their next one won't be gravel. Until I get a different direction.
I don't think that the one they got should have been gravel, I mean, but, you know, we let it go.
Two gravel, and the one on the
No, they've,
west side, the far one out, gravel too.
it's asphalt.
Sure for that.
But we have two gravel ones.
Gravel. Michaels.
The true value deal, I mean, that was a TIF deal. I would have strongly recommended that if the TIF money, they also would have to have paid that driveway.
We're not in Chicago, though.
We're not even in a lot of places in Iowa.
We're close enough.
Yeah, we
Close
probably
the door.
could have got them to gone to pave it if we'd have
We were
tipped it the
in-
right way.
If we were in Tacoma, we could have gotten it.
So do we want to do anything different than what we've already decided to do on the driveways?
I would look at the recommendation. I'd send to the plan.
Because he's gonna take his to the planning and zoning, so do we want to send our?
Well, he's gonna go to the Board of
Board of
Adjustment.
Adjustment.
Board of Adjustments, because that's the existing.
But do we want to send ours to the planning and zoning to look at?
I think so.
Well, then let's make that in the
What
form
do you
of.
guys think?
I don't have a problem with it. I put in a recommendation that we don't disallow gravel. I think we've got too much.
Okay, because right now it says we don't allow it, so
Oh,
go and tell them
There's
that,
a lot
that'd
of
be good. Because I'm on board with you, but.
I'll tell you, I'll tell you one thing that you might want to consider in this, and I've seen this in other cities, is that you might say, okay, I'm good with gravel for a certain portion of it, or I'm good for gravel up to the sidewalk, but the driveway apron,
apron,
Yeah.
yes, I can see the apron. So
The
you're not,
sidewalk and out needs to be paved. I mean,
but what do you do when you gotta come out to a seal coat driveway?
that's why I say
You
that
gonna have the apron?
sometimes the ordinance goes in some places that you gotta pave to the front line of your building. That's a way to address this.
out there where they seal coat the street. Where do you?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, because next year they may seal coat it again, then the year after, the year after.
well, you have loose pea gravel laying at the street.
Or they plow snow and all of a sudden you don't have. I mean, because it just doesn't hold up.
I mean, you got different.
I would say if you exit onto a paved street, then you need to have a paved apron. If you're a seal coat or gravel street, which I don't know that we have any gravel streets.
Up north end of town.
Yeah,
Well,
see,
if
that's
you
what
exit
we're
onto
gonna have to
seal code
get
or
in
ground
compliance with,
water.
we're gonna have to get in compliance with our own ordinances in order to force the rest of these people to do it too. I mean, it's hard to get people to do something you don't do yourself.
I don't see the purpose in having, you have to have a concrete apron or concrete driveway when you come out to a seal code street.
So why don't we have a motion to take this before the planning and zoning, and then we can all put in our 2 cents worth with them.
I understand why you say that, because it does make sense. But then do you require them, if the street does get paved with other than seal coat, then they put in
An apron?
I would figure
No, I'd say we would have to eat the cost of it then.
But I'm talking about for new development.
Oh,
If we had new development.
Yeah.
Of course, the
That
larger
could be
question
in
that you beg on that is do you allow
Development
unpaved
without-
streets?
Correct.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
We
Done too much of that.
We need, if you're gonna develop it, do it right, or don't do it at all.
Okay. All right, we'll take that to plan commission.
Discuss code of ordinance 50.029 regarding grass height.
As you can see, ours is very vague about determining whether or not vegetation is in violation of our ordinance, so Marion, I think, has a really comprehensive way to look at it. I think Scott had asked for inches. Theirs is 8 inches, but they go through the whole gamut of what you can and can't do.
So you've sent out, let's back up a little bit. You sent out several notices,
23?
and what was the response after the notice went out? For most
23
people?
lawns mowed.
Really? That's a pretty good
Yeah.
response.
Do we have to mow any of them?
We didn't, but there were 2 that were mowed by volunteers because there were people that needed the help. Which I thought was awesome that this group came forward and asked if there was anybody that needed help after they heard the notices went out.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So seeing as how people have already moved into compliance, I think we have to continue with keeping an eye on it.
So you're just wanting a number for the height?
Yeah, that was the question is, do we need a number, 8 inches, 6 inches, 10 inches, whatever, and a little more definition to what is allowed and what isn't allowed. So I looked at several, and I liked how Marion's was worded, and there's some allowances if, like we have, for instance, there are some places around here where it's more natural than a yard, and so this gives some allowance for somebody that has a backyard that's all timber and maybe they don't mow it down to 6 inches or I guess it's 8 inches here.
I like the Marion thing. I think that we need to have definition of what we're doing instead of this big, go get them, Chris, on this one, but not next door because of X, Y, Z. I think with the definition, I don't know if everybody else has had a chance to look at that or.
Yeah, once you send a letter,
That's good for the year.
that's good for the year, so.
Yeah, and you don't have to do it that way. There are communities that simply publish in the newspaper and say, this is what will happen if your lawn gets too high.
One way we can do it is put it in the April water bill.
We just need to get the ordinance to where we're not having to spend any more time other than once writing notices to make sure.
Marion, it's pretty good.
You guys have a chance to look at the one from Marion and have any input or? Huh?
Yeah.
Like it. Would anybody want to make a motion to adopt that one?
But what you need to do is.
We gotta have a-
Yeah.
Yeah, preparing.
Make the motion, Jeff.
Well, I'd like to see how everybody else feels, but yeah, I make a motion that you guys doctor that up and you say Bloomfield and.
Second. Any more discussion?
It gives us the ability to be flexible during certain.
So that's why I have to wait till we have a public hearing, if we set that down.
Give
That
them
was
time
one,
to
that's
do it.
on the agenda too.
Just let it go.
I was gonna let that take for,
We'll talk about that later.
you wanna talk about it tonight later?
It's on the agenda.
Well, yeah, I just didn't know. Discuss program proposal for
We
some.
need to vote.
Yeah, and I have a quick question too, but after you vote, if you don't mind.
We can ask that.
Well, was this a good process? Do you want me to bring a handful of ordinances next time? I know it took some time and I don't want to waste your time, but if you thought it was useful, we'll keep doing it.
I think it's gonna be faster and easier for us than us all trying to go through them and decide what we gotta do.
Well, if any of you have particular ordinances that you want me to draw attention to, just let me know.
What you're doing is, in some respects, is relying on us for priority.
You're gonna see what's coming in and more in tune with the response from the community. It makes sense coming from you.
We can vote now.
Earl,
Yes.
Scott,
Yeah.
Jack,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Discuss program proposal for summer water activities.
I guess that's fine. So,
Did you put that on
yeah, I think so. But, I guess I've been in contact with a lot of the citizens in town, so there's some things come up about basically water use in the summer months. So filling pools, sprinklers in the yards, that kind of thing. So just wanted to see, and I had Sandy check about, different rate schedule for what we have for rural water. There is a possibility where we could do a different rate schedule. So like, on average, somebody uses 5,000 gallons a month, through May, June, July, whatever. And if we want to, if anybody uses, additional 10,000 or 20,000 after, in those months, you could actually have a different rate schedule for that. So, maybe give a discount rate schedule or something like that. So just some kind of like that, because I know other cities right now, even new progressive are putting in deduct meters. So where you actually have a deduct meter versus, so it's not sewer meter. And also talking about putting in sewer meters. So there's just other options to do it. So I just didn't know what. I guess we kind of intended with us since I had enough citizens talking about it, so I might bring it to you and see what you want to say.
About a month late.
Well,
but
it comes every year.
That's what I did.
I want to give a little quid pro quo on this one. I recognize that there are sometimes that people are using water that doesn't go through the sewer. What we're talking about really is alleviation from the sewer charge. On the other hand, do we want to start talking about how many illegals that we have hooked up for stormwater that goes into the sewer? There's a big quid pro quo here.
We were already gonna tackle that. When I take the hose and attach it to my pool and let it go out to the yard, where does it go?
But if your drain downstairs is hooked up to the sanitary, you're not gonna charge for that. See that, it's not an equal thing, but the fact is that I'm only trying to draw attention to that problem, which is not being charged. And probably more significantly not being charged than this one that we're actually getting some more money.
And that's costing us a new sewer plant.
The only problem is mine's done right, so why should I get penalized?
Well,
Because I took the time and effort to hook mine up.
properly. And then the question is who's gonna balance that business? Simultaneously, you're being asked to balance this one as far as somebody watering their plants or their garden or putting water in a pool. I get it. I've dealt with these issues in other communities and this is always a conundrum. You can just say, look, we'll make it simple and say, we'll do a 10% deduct for the months of June, July, and August for everybody as far as sewer is concerned, just because of this and not fool with it. But then you're probably overdoing it. On the other hand, we're way underdoing it on illegal hookups. you're gonna spend a lot, if you're gonna really try to make this as equitable as possible, it's gonna cost us a lot of money to do that.
I thought we were gonna have to
It's
chase
real.
down the illegal ones anyway for our sewer filtration plan.
I think that that is something that you're gonna wind up seeing through the RFQ process, that it's actually due, that the submissions are due tomorrow. But this could be such a significant issue, because you not just have individual houses, you got subdivisions that are doing this too. So where do you draw the line on this? Because John points out that's why we're having a sewer plant situation to begin with. 95% of the time, we're easily within compliance. But it spikes all the time when we have wet weather. We're gonna see huge spikes here in the next few days because of it. I'm only drawing attention to this because, some of the same people that want a break on their sewer charge there are probably costing us a lot. And this is, the equity issue here cuts both ways.
I say with everything you got going right now, we're late for the.
Yeah, I'd say let's table this.
Well, we can bring it back,
This
we can
winter.
bring it back, in the fall or winter,
That's
but
what I mean, look at it later on, when we got more time, and then have something made up for next year. We'll have our sewer thing more than that. We'll know more information about that too, where we'll know about the filtration and all that, so.
Somebody's putting 5,000 gallons of water in their pool one time a year.
but when we get,
That's not
when
that
we
big
have
a cost anyway.
when we have a storm that's doing 3 and 4 times
Yeah.
our normal capacity in a rain event,
Yeah.
Do you think it's gonna rain?
it's supposed to start tonight. Build your yard, it's supposed to have 4 days of rain. We'll bring it back.
Consider approval of expenditure for Parkview Trailhead residential driveway approach for approximately $8,200.
Dan,
That's mine. So we did put that new trailhead out there, and brought the street down, and actually you have a homeowner there, time where you talk about where streets is, so technically we owe the homeowner an approach, so we really need to get that approach put in there. And actually in a way too, to help kind of curb some of that water control too, because they're coming down that hill that's right there. So basically this is just, I wanted to bring it to attention to put it in there because the price is for the $7,500 mark, but we need to put in that approach. Just being good neighbors and trying to finish that trailhead off. And I think, Chris, is that an option we could pay for it out of that. We still have some money in that trails money to possibly pay for that, so. I guess it's kind of a wash, but.
would we cover it all or be close to it?
I think we can cover it all.
Okay. It's beyond my expenditure authority. I'd do it if it were me at 7,500.
Would you pick in 700?
Only if the trails people told me to. Otherwise, I wouldn't pay a dime. And we have the money for it.
I would do approve expenditure, maybe 200.
Second.
Any more discussion?
Darren,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Earl,
Yes,
Scott?
Yes.
Consider approval of pay estimate 18 for RG Construction LLC in the amount of $26,280.
Chris,
The library's done. No, there are a few little things they're gonna finish up next week, but they'd really like to get this estimate done. The biggest thing they're gonna finish is putting the, approach on the sidewalk on the south end. They've worked through the punch list pretty well. We're gonna have one more review with the architect, but I guess overall we feel like we're there.
and we gotta get this done this month, right?
Yeah, we gotta get it paid, to get it turned in to the grant. The deadline is the end of this month in terms of paying our bills.
So we can pay it the next meeting and still be good.
Could, yeah, it makes it really tight for us in terms of getting everything back to the state.
A lot of places were taking your final payment before the work was completely done, dead people.
Recall.
And the punch list, and that's not done in a real fast manner.
I do think most everything's been addressed. There are, like I said, the sidewalk that's yet, and they've committed to coming down next week and doing that. And the architect is,
Do we approve it pending completion?
I was just gonna say that, why don't you approve it subject to final administrative review, and then we'll make a call, because we hear what you're saying, and we have the same concerns. But we need to get this filed as reasonably quick as possible. So if you give us the discretion to get that done, then we won't have to wait till next week.
And approve it pending completion of the work.
Administrative approval.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Scott,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Darren,
Discuss route for Harry Nation Day's Kitty Parade. This is, my wife's in, she can't be here tonight. My wife's in charge of the kitty parade for Harry Nation. She would like to just do the 4 blocks of the square, but I thought we would need approval in order to shut down Washington Street for the 15 minutes for the parade.
And that's a problem. The state has to intercede in that.
I don't know why, because we shut it down for the homecoming parade to cross it.
Yeah.
To cross it, but that's very quick. If you're
No, and
shutting
it
down-
takes 20 minutes to cross.
Sean, does the state have a position on this, as far as shutting down Washington?
We never asked permission before.
It's always easier to ask forgiveness.
You know what the answer is.
How about if you go the 3 blocks, and then can she go the 3 out of the highway and then turn back around a block or 2? I don't know.
The only problem is if you have little kids, say 8, 10-year-old kids riding bicycles, and you take another 3 block, you do another 3 streets, it's just
I got you.
that much further, and if they get tired or wore out, I mean, I'm just,
Can we block it off, just, the parking area? Just have them on Washington, the parking area, which technically is the city's, but not out into the street itself.
There's an extra lane on that
turns the length.
street there, so
They kind of barricade it off.
I'm asking.
I am too, yeah.
And that's what she wanted to know. I mean, if we have to, because I mentioned just crossing, going down to Community First Bank and coming back and crossing again, but by the time you do that, you got the street shut down for the same amount of time as if you just run the parade down the street. She don't know if there's gonna be 2 floats or 50 floats. I'm gonna guess closer to 2. I mean, it's the first year for it, I mean,
you'll be surprised.
I'm just saying, I don't know. But the homecoming,
We can run down the parking along.
or can we set up cones and
Yeah.
just make it 2-way and give us half of it? Do we need, I mean, I can talk to the state or see what we need to do. So I mean, we'll approve it at that, and if the state doesn't okay it, then we'll just have to do the longer route. But do we open a can?
Well,
First, asking a question.
Yeah, well,
Too late now, it's open.
here's,
How about if you restrict the southbound traffic to 1 lane?
That's what I say, you got that extra.
you can squeeze it. Yeah, I think you can squeeze it.
That's what I mean, you can, yeah.
Or you can also shift it, you can take 2 lanes and take the parking across the street from the courthouse off, and you have 2 lanes of
What
traffic.
day is the closing?
It's
Saturday.
We can see how big the parade's gonna be. If it's only gonna take 5 minutes to go or 10 minutes, we can just,
Let me ask you this in a broader sense. Do we really need to do this at a council level, or can you just let us figure it out?
well, she was told she needed to talk to me.
Well,
And as mayor, and she's involved, I act I thought I needed to talk to the council,
I think the
because
question
I
is.
can make the decision if you want me to.
I think the question is who's talking to who? Are you talking to her or is she talking to you?
Is this Saturday morning there?
It's probably 10 o'clock Saturday.
How about we just go up there Saturday morning and close the parking off on that side until you get ready to.
I mean, that's fine, I don't, we just need to make sure that if it's safe.
Right.
Because there's gonna be a lot, it's little kids.
We can put some,
Needs some traffic control.
we can put some traffic control cost bucks up there and all that.
So,
Yeah.
we'll do the route based on the direction we get that we can do it. Thanks. Consider and discuss committee for sidewalk and street repairs on the square. Been wanting to put together and talked with Chris a little bit on a couple different ways to go about. I'd like to have a public hearing to let all the people sit down and discuss, their thoughts on the sidewalks and the squares as far as getting it fixed so that we can get moving on getting the sidewalks done or curb and gutters. I know there's a lot of business owners that's wanting to get their sidewalks fixed or getting it done, and we just need to start in a new direction to do that. So I guess all I'm just asking from the council is, been working with Chris on a plan to have a public hearing and have some questionnaires for people to apply to kind of be on the committee to help come up with new ideas and different ideas. I guess I'm just wanting the approval or whatever, everybody's blessing to just move forward with that. Or if somebody's got another idea of how to go about it, or.
I'll interject one thing. There's gonna have to be a formal hearing process. I don't think this was done the last time you did streetscape. This stuff has to go through planning commission according to the state statute. And it never was done before, and they have the whole public hearing. Anytime you have a major, improvement to a public thoroughfare, gotta go through planning commission. That doesn't say that planning commission make a recommendation, but again, the final decision is yours, but there is actually a committee already established, like plan commission, to do some of this. Now, that doesn't imply that there isn't other work that needs to be done. You can have a committee, but the formal hearing process should go through the planning commission. We have never done that.
You suggest it starts there, or does a committee form and then go?
I think you have to have a committee that probably brings a presentation, but the formal place that this public hearing would be held would be the planning commission. They have to have a vote for recommendation.
Right, and I think, as Dan and I have talked about it, it was maybe public meeting is a better word than public hearing to start with, just to begin to get the discussion happening as opposed to, here's the formal recommendation and approval at a hearing, like you would at a hearing, but just how do you kickstart the process and keep going?
The other thing too is that if you formally impanel a committee, if you formally impanel a committee, you gotta go through the notice process, even if they aren't making decisions. So that means that I'm gonna have this committee and we're gonna have a meeting, and if you impanel it, you, the city council, impanel it, you have created a committee that needs to go through the notice procedures. So if we're gonna do this, we gotta be a little bit more appropriate in our.
Well, I'm just opening it up for this
Right.
information
We need to
because
move
we
forward.
need to know this and we need to know how
Yeah, I'm just
to go
putting out
about
some
it.
ground rules here because we haven't been doing those in the past.
So then do we just need to table it till the next meeting and get some ground rules set or figure out exactly what we have to do so that we know what direction we gotta go? Or do you know that?
I don't know, I'm not talking about what you're doing as far as the impanelment is concerned, what you expect them to do, what direction you wanna give them. I'm just saying that if you do this, this is how you gotta do it. If you want to create a committee, it's probably appropriate for the council to give them some general direction. I don't know whether you want to tour the countryside and start from ground zero, or do you want to focus on something of specific, that has some specific nature to it? If you want to say we want to do something about, are we talking streetscape 2.0, or are we talking about something that's very narrowly defined? I don't know.
I mean, I guess I was just thinking, you know, in order to start the whole thing, no matter how you do it, you gotta do curbs and gutters. But if you do curbs and gutters, you know, you gotta do them to fix the sidewalks.
You gotta fix the streets too, because our ordinance has conflict with the sidewalks and the crown of the streets. I mean,
But I think you can do it.
they're gonna wind up raising sidewalks pretty high because they can't be below the crown.
But you can build the curbs and gutters to the record. I mean, we got the specs on what we had or was gonna do. If you gotta grind the streets off or what you gotta do.
That was, yeah, there was a lot of work put into that aspect.
And we've got that information.
We do have that information.
Taking that information and figuring out how we're gonna make that work with what we've got now in a newly defined scope.
And I know
I don't
that
have the
at
skills to
times,
do
I
that.
know that at times you've been talking about, well, what if we try curbless? I mean, are we gonna visit that? I don't know.
I think we're gonna set out what we want and then go to engineering. To get the elevations and flow.
Yeah. I mean, that in and of itself is a big discussion.
Why we need to get started.
I'm not saying otherwise. I think the question is what do you want to define this committee to do?
What would you recommend? How would you go about trying to get it started again?
You know, I don't want to reinvent the wheel because you've got $500,000 sitting on the shelf there. I think the first thing you do is you look at that, you perhaps get an engineering firm to come in and look at that and say, okay, where are the hot spots for us to try and put in a different plan? We got to look at that crown issue versus the sidewalk. That's a huge problem because if we start saying, oh, so-and-so wants to fix their sidewalk, and we have people that do want to fix their sidewalks, but it's been pointed out many times that fixing the sidewalk at the grade that they're at right now would be wrong. How do we want to handle the stormwater management of that whole square area? It sounds to me that probably need to have at least an engineering firm to come in, evaluate the work that's been done, and perhaps have them give us options to consider. That's no small task. And you could start that process before you even have a committee. And for that matter, would you want a committee until you have that evaluation? And I'm pulling this off the top of my head. There might be other things that we need to consider in that regard, and I would actually get an engineering firm to come in here just to talk to us about that.
Won't sit in here.
Well, I just wanted to put it out there so we could get talking about it again. I didn't know, I mean, if the committee's not the right thing to do at this time, then
Well,
I'm fine with that. I just don't know.
Yeah, no, I think there will definitely
I
need.
mean, at some point, we will need one.
But, you know, if the committee's gonna stand here and say, okay, now what do we do? That ain't gonna help them. I mean, we need to take some of that leadership, so.
We didn't wanna spend a dime on any of this to replan streetscape. We don't wanna spend any money on that at all. In fact, a few months ago and now we're ready to start again. I mean, we had a plan.
That's over with. Let's move
Well, I
on.
know it's over with, but it's gonna cost a lot of money to move forward. We have to know that. And we need to have some kind of a work session or something to figure out what our goals are.
That's kind of what I was trying to do here.
But somebody needs to define them. So you guys wanna sit down and define what goals you have and put a plan together? And then, we can take it to a firm. Put it on an RFP for them to come and look at it. But it's gonna be a big process and you have to have a lot of detail in your scope. I'm not qualified to write it.
That's why I think that you ought to have an engineering firm come in here and consult with you to start with.
Just to start.
That's the best I can come up with. I mean, and I haven't really given a whole lot of thought about this, because I'm trying to figure out how you'd kickstart this to the next level, but we do have a pretty significant issue here about the crown and the sidewalks.
And we got a sewer plant to do, and we got this program and that program, we got a lot of stuff going on.
We can
And I don't wanna not do
we
it.
can multitask as long as we farm it out, if that's what you wanna do. But I think the real issue here is that, I mean, think about this. We impanel a committee and say, go ahead. Go ahead, what? I think we need to get started. You're right, Darren.
Why don't you and I and John sit down with an engineering firm and go through some ideas,
I mean,
if you're willing, John?
Busiest
To get
season of
started.
the year, but yeah,
You and me both, but.
yeah.
This is obviously a complex project. Always has been.
I know we got a lot of issues on the sidewalks. I had comments the other day that they didn't realize, somebody said something along the lines of, they was listening to all the gab about streetscape. They really didn't know what it was all about, but they were walking the square and they said they couldn't believe the condition of the sidewalks. Yeah. Right.
Well, the sidewalk and streets thing is an evident issue. But implied there also is stormwater management.
I know, you don't see that or you don't think about it unless it's running in your building during a rain.
I know that there was a lot of discussion about the aesthetics of streetscape, and that perhaps was part of the criticism, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that project, when all was said and done, was a sidewalk, street, and storm sewer project. And if we start looking at it from that perspective, and a little bit more, with that emphasis a little bit more, it becomes a little bit more clear as to what we gotta deal with. Because it is sidewalks, streets, and storm sewer. Regardless of what you pay them.
And other utilities that probably could use replaced.
Which were part of the plan too, but not the driving force behind it. Framing this issue is going to be important for this entire council.
So I suppose we'll just try to get a hold of the.
Well, I think we meet with French Reniker engineers, three of us, and lay out what we want them to look at.
It's an evaluation, yeah.
Is everybody in favor of that?
What's that gonna cost? Have French Reniker do that.
You want us to get a cost estimate and bring it back to you next
Yeah, we
time?
better do that.
We can do that. Do you want us to farm this out or just go with French Reniker? You want us to get quotes from other firms?
Suppose we probably better. That's what we're doing pretty much with everything else, so, yeah, we just need our RFQs, huh?
Well, let us get some quotes so we know what we're talking about here, okay? We'll get some quotes. If we need to go to a formal process, then we'll go to a formal process, but let's find out, generally speaking, what we're talking about here. We don't know.
To review, just to review plans that we have and the conditions now.
Okay. Let's vote on this, folks.
So we got a motion to get quotes on evaluating the information that we have.
Earl,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Consider and discuss moving the air conditioner from the water plant to the pool concession area. Did you get any bids on that?
No, sir, I haven't done that yet.
Is it worth moving?
Yes, if you don't want it there, we'll put it upstairs in the building.
But I mean, now it's.
Let's find out.
It's fairly new. I mean, I haven't spent much time at the water plant, but they said it's fairly new unit, it's worth moving.
Much discussion about water.
It's worth finding out a number, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know who installed it? That might be a good source to start on.
That'd probably be a good guy to start with to move it, cause mini splits are a little more work, they're a little different cat.
If it's, under the threshold, just gonna go ahead and move it or not, or are you good with that or what? If we don't, you know what I'm saying? Certainly it's not gonna cost that, that's $7,500 to move it.
Oh,
It's just-
yeah, you can.
If you're gonna spend $7,500, there better be a new.
Right, that's what I'm saying, I'm just saying, I don't need to bring it back, you know?
I'll put one in for
I'm just saying.
two-thirds of that.
You just wanna go ahead and do it, or you just wanna get the bids, I guess is what's your question?
I guess get some bids and we can just talk about it, I mean, I don't know, it's just something needs to be done in that area before we burn up a bunch more equipment this year.
I'm on board, we'll get it done.
Consider and discuss committee for hiring of police officers. You wanna talk any on that, Sean?
Yeah, kind of for future reference, I'd like us to come up with kind of what the whole council's looking at and maybe different options when we hire future police officers. Hopefully we won't have to for a long time, but just maybe different options in what we've been doing. Right now, we have the normal test and stuff and it's worked out usually every time. But just a committee, because I think there's some other ideas that might be floating around out there, how to go about stuff, or any people that are interested.
So is everybody phone contact we talk with? Just thought it'd be best to have a committee that kind of come up with some education rule, just some different guidelines so that they're more, we just need to go over what they have already and just update it a little, kind of like our ordinances, just update it a little bit. So is everybody in favor of having a committee for that?
Let's just go over the process.
Just the process and different, education and look at what we have and maybe changing it. So we got a motion?
And, make a committee for discussing police hiring.
Second.
Who's gonna appoint the committee, or how do you know? How many on the committee?
Sean gonna have pretty good input, I mean.
Yeah, I was gonna say myself and two councilmen, and then Sean and the deputy, or not deputy, the assistant chief. Yeah, that, I mean, it's just,
Leave it in his court. but-
yeah, leave it in his court, but the council needs to be involved just to kind of help him.
You're talking about the committee for hiring police officers? Can I suggest one thing is that you include Sandy on this, just so that you guys can get a little bit more standardization in the process of doing the hiring. We're a little sketchy on that. And I think.
Or HR.
The HR piece on that, and they could, you know, administratively, we can help you conduct the search once it gets to that point. I think you need a little structure in that. I'm volunteering Sandy for it, but that's kind of her job, so.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Jack. Yes. Scott,
Yes.
Darren.
Yes. Consider and discuss procedure for public hearings.
Do you want me to do this?
Yeah, do you want to go ahead?
All right. We have an ordinance on the books that says that we have to have a meeting, have a public hearing to approve an ordinance. What that means is that we have to have a meeting, to authorize a meeting, to have a public hearing, and then you have up to 3 readings of the ordinance in 3 separate meetings. So right now, you can be talking about 4 meetings to pass an ordinance. The idea of having a public hearing in 3 readings is so that you have the opportunity for public participation. Do you need a 4th meeting to do that? It's not a state requirement. We talked with the lawyers about this. It's not a state requirement, but it is a requirement that you find typically with other cities around. I have worked in an Iowa city that didn't do this, that we could just administratively schedule a public hearing without having to have a meeting to do that. Whether that administratively scheduling is going through the mayor's office or my office, the fact of the matter is that it would save you 1 meeting. I mean, to fix the weed, the grass height. We're gonna go through a lot of bureaucracy to make something simple. You can get it done in 2 meetings right now, if you have unanimity about it. But do you even need to do that? We can still have a public hearing, it has to be noticed, that's what it's in the ordinances for, that's what the state statute requires. All I'm asking is do you want to have a meeting to have a meeting?
No.
I mean, I guess it's just transparency really is the only thing that.
Look, we're getting really transparent now. We're on TV. And
I noticed that.
And typically what you see here is as far as transparency is what somebody would say, you know what, we need to have an ordinance done. Like tonight, we said, we need to have an ordinance done. Well, we didn't know whether we needed to have an ordinance done. But now we know that we have an ordinance done. We could put that on administratively. It wasn't an agenda item. Could have been, I suppose, if we wanted to schedule it that way. But
So the next agenda can have the public hearing already on it for the weed ordinance, and then we have the hearing and do the 3 readings and do it in 1.
you could do it that way. Or if there is issues, if the public comes forward and says, well, wait a minute, you know, I got some issues about this, you cannot waive that.
Right.
And the waiver requirement is what, 4 out of 5 or all 5? 4 out of 5. So it'd have to be an extraordinary vote to even go to a waiver. But you still have up to 3 more meetings about it.
Right.
put 8 inches of grass, to say that you wanna have a grass height at 8 inches?
And that's,
Before we send a
that's a
notice.
pretty easy example. I mean, there's other things.
There would be other things that we probably would be talking about as far as ordinances are concerned in a discussion manner like Chris did tonight. Take some work that we have to do. For instance, we're going to be doing some research here on some of these things before we even bring them back for future consideration. And oh, by the way, the stuff that goes to the plan commission and comes to us, they have to notice it. But if it's an ordinance, I want to say, if it's an ordinance that's already being a recommendation from the plan commission, you have to do that to have a meeting before you pass that ordinance. It's already implied with the plan commission, isn't it? So there's lots of redundancy built in here that's belt in suspenders. I think a belt is okay. Except for maybe me, I need suspenders.
Especially if we kind of have consensus and we don't have a big uproar from the crowd that nobody likes this idea. If it's,
Well, it's public policy consideration. I mean, that's exactly what you're looking at. I mean,
And
legally it's not, but the reason that the significant majority of governmental bodies set a public, you're not having a meeting to have a meeting, you're at your meeting setting a public hearing so that people have notice to come to the public hearing and be heard. The grass example is one where you waive the second, third reading likely. But the majority of people that are gonna weigh in, your citizens, especially those, if you do it on a short notice, won't be able to do that. They wanna send in written comments, written letters. They won't have that period of time if you set the public hearing on a 24-hour notice. The letter's gonna get there after you had the first meeting.
But the notice is in 24 hours, it's what, 4 and 20, 4 and 10? I mean, we have to publish it in advance.
Yes.
We have to publish in advance. It's stipulated by statute. It's not 24 hours like we just did this on a whim. We have to get it out in advance. In fact, if we were to do a notice for the grass thing, we'd have to publish it in the next paper for a meeting that's 2 weeks from now. So there's time here. I'm not saying that we're trying to slide something through here, but I think we're getting caught up in a lot of red tape trying to get stuff done here. There's a lot of work to do. We're not taken away from anything here. I've never heard of controversy. I worked in Clinton. We never did this, and nobody complained about that. You had the ability to go several weeks. You had plenty of time to get something in the newspaper and respond. If you can't respond to a notice that really is about 7-8 days, and something like this. And when we talk about big deal ordinances, we talk about it tonight already. And we're not going to be done talking about it until we get direction from the council. Those agendas are printed. Those agendas have those items on there. I think that we're spending a little too much time on that.
I think until we get our new website up and running, to where everybody's got one place they can go and get that information, I probably would recommend not changing it.
I think that's reasonable. I think that's very
At
reasonable.
that point, then by that time, everybody will know where they can go to get the information, and they can get on the website and look and see if there's a public hearing or not, or what it's about.
Exactly.
But until we have that common place, I think we probably need to leave it
No,
like.
and in fact, that's one of the things I was gonna mention tonight is that we're gonna start working on that administratively to get that forward, but I think that, you know, we don't go into this without having reasonable assurances. I mean, when these ordinances were put together, when we were talking about notification requirements and all that kind of stuff, I'm sure that these things were in existence way before anybody even thought about the internet, let alone live streaming. Our lives actually work a little quicker than that these days.
But where's it at so everybody knows how to live stream?
If you put it on the website, you pick it up on the website. my wife got on the procedure, and she had no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
She started, but she's there.
I mean, where was that?
Hi, Bev.
Where was that information at? I mean, was it in the newspaper? They had it.
And
Not
we-
everybody reads the newspaper, or gets the newspaper either. but-
Well, but you know what? Common way of.
We can also put it on the website.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Once we get it set up and running, we got one common place that everything's, where everything's at, so the people know where they can go to get whatever they need.
We're gonna table this until we get the website up.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
Okay.
Consider and discuss method of evaluation for city administrator. I think at the last meeting, we discussed one of them forms that we had gotten. Other than discussing what form we was interested in using, we never really decided how we was gonna go about the process of doing it. We need to get that process figured out so that we can get it done.
Well, do we have a good form?
What form did you use a lot? We have the form,
One from Manchester is the one we said we were.
yeah, that we got from
Pat.
Pat.
Didn't you say something about a 360 evaluation?
Well, the mayor asked me about, about that, and so I sent him some information, basically a Wikipedia article and some discussions about what a 360 evaluation is and benefits and cons and pros of it.
I mean, it was just kind of a form thing, it just had different questions and different ways people go about doing evaluations. It was just kind of it was more of 360 information from different. But
360, from my perspective, 360 works if in fact you have very stipulated community goals of vision. You have an opportunity to evaluate success and lack thereof. And then, you have to communicate that, and you have to have people outside of you folks that are very conversant with it too. We don't have a community goal, we don't have even a community, we don't have a community vision statement. All those things can be done, probably should be done. We can do it internally. There's lots of people, including Pat Callahan, that does this visioning work and goal setting sessions. I bet he's done 20 or 30 of them.
Well, my only point was, I think we need to have, I'm not saying it's gonna make the decisions, but we need to have the input from everybody, all the employees.
Do you have it now?
Do I have what?
That,
No? I just want every city employee to do an evaluation just for our consideration, so we can read what the people that are actually doing the work and are interfacing.
realistically, the line of authority is I work with 3 department directors. I also work with the union president.
And if one of those people have an issue with you and is afraid to say anything to you because you are the sole discretion at hiring and firing, then nothing happens.
I don't make hiring and firings without input from the department directors that supervise those people. And in fact, the union contract actually understands it that way. If there is any grievance that would be filed, it would first go through the department director.
If it's a union employee,
There's very few that aren't,
to you, but there is,
department directors generally speaking.
office help.
We had unionized office help too.
I just think it'd be a useful tool to have input from the employee.
I never evaluated one of my supervisors. How about you, Scott?
Evaluated my supervisor. The only way that we do it at Deere is we actually have a survey. And so it's kind of an evaluation form that you fill out, and it's, you don't know who it's coming from. So my supervisor gets to read it, but he doesn't know who it's coming from. That would be the only way it would.
What I'm saying is, when you have, staff that are, I guess, evaluating their supervisors, staff might not be motivated to take the supervisor's, direction, or you might have an axe to grind, or.
You're gonna read it with a grain of salt. I mean,
Then
you
what
would
happened? We are the ones that are supposed to be looking at what he
You're
does.
not with him every day.
Wait a minute, we're supposed to be the ones that's setting his goals and visions and what we wanna see him accomplish, and then we have to be in tune enough to what he's doing to see, we ask you to do this, you did or didn't do it, you did it very well, you did it poorly, whatever, and then we make decisions based on his performance. So that's really, it should be us.
You don't care
That's
what
what I
the
think.
employees have to say.
Employees should feel the ability to come to us and
They don't,
speak
you
to us.
took the liaison position away.
I haven't heard that from any of the employees.
Well, you haven't been talking the right one.
Really?
Yeah.
You wanna be
I wanna throw
specific?
anybody under the bus?
No,
No,
you wanna be specific about what the complaints were?
not right here, right now.
Well, this is the time.
No, it isn't.
No, it isn't.
No, it isn't.
Then what's,
This isn't the time and place. What we need to do is figure out
we should be,
how we're gonna
There was a
go.
route to
should
this,
be-
it was liaison positions.
we should be looking at his position.
We don't
And
work
his
with him
performance.
24 every day.
No, we don't.
They do.
So do you think Danny and Chris should be
Actually,
involved?
that's not true.
They interact with you far more than we do.
Some I don't talk to for weeks.
Yeah, I've heard
Because
that.
they doing
I've heard
things,
that.
they're doing things that I have no relationship to. I rely upon the department directors.
I don't understand what your fear is.
I'm not
I'm
afraid.
not talking to you, I'm talking to John and Earl.
It's not a fear, it just doesn't make sense.
Do you think Danny and Chris should be involved?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
so,
they could be involved. Because
so
they're
how is that
department-
different
they're
than the rest of the
directors.
employees?
They're directors and they work directly with him.
So does
The
all
the employees work under these folks.
What if they're gone?
Well, you've got my opinion.
It's just an evaluation
We all
tool.
have an opinion. Yep.
So how do you wanna move forward with this?
The way we've done it before
How did you do it before?
is with, like when Ted and Carol were here, we got together, all five of us and the mayor, and we sat in the council chambers and we went line by line down it and we all evaluated them independently with the same form. And then at the end, we got together and we scored them. Isn't that right? And so that's how we came up with the score. I'm open to other opinions or,
Did you do that in an
Methods.
open meeting?
no, it wasn't open, no.
So you can have a closed session to do an evaluation when that person's not involved or not there?
Automatic.
Automatic? I'm just.
Yeah.
Checking.
I'm with you.
I'm just checking the
Yep.
proper procedure here.
Yep, yeah. That's the way it was done in the past.
Weigh in, what do you think? I mean,
Well, I mean, it's a
I don't want to
policy
put you on the
decision, it's
spot.
not a legal decision. I mean, I give legal
yeah, I
advice.
know, but
But, you know, it's a policy decision. There's a lot of different ways to skin that cat. You know, I think that the input aspect ought to be considered regardless of where they are in the chain of command. I think ultimately though, the evaluation on performance should be done by the council.
Well, that's what I was getting at, is did you get the input from all the employees
agree.
and then
That's what
include that
I'm
in our evaluation?
I get calls all the time from employees. I don't know about you, but I get calls all the time from employees. So I feel connected with them. I don't know if there's an employee that works for the city that feels like they can't come to me. If there is, then I apologize, but I don't believe there is.
I'll show you an example later.
Okay.
And the nice thing about the input is if they come to you, you know about it, and you can share it when you have your meeting.
In
Uh,
private, yeah.
We used to have liaisons
I
that
understand.
any employee could come to. We done away with that.
They do it with Carol and Ted?
Here's the way
Yeah, leave that.
the information that
Everybody.
I did quite a bit of researching on different methods of this, just, I knew it was a hot topic, but a lot of the places, the employees and everybody evaluate, and then they send their evaluations to the mayor or the council, and then they use that information in their evaluation.
Well, it's definitely a new process for us.
It's,
For all,
it is,
we've gotta come up with a process and
that's why
we
we're
can walk
talking
through
about.
whatever steps it takes to get there. And then we also have to, it's gotta go down to everybody else, you know? But whatever we need to do, we need to do it and get through it so we can make recommendations. I mean, everybody needs to be appreciated and heard. And everybody needs to be, the purpose for an evaluation is so somebody can see where they stand today and give them a goal where they should be down the road and recognize that. So I think we have to work towards that. So what are we gonna use for a tool? Well, do you think that's gonna work, the form? I mean, I wasn't here last time, so was
I don't have
that,
any problem with the form, but I just think it ought to go to all employees.
Do we need to? I haven't read
They come
every
to
question.
us
Do
for
we
our-
need to reword any of the questions to fit our situation, or?
Been 2 weeks since I looked at it.
I know, but I'm just wondering, do we need to look at the form? The form, I mean, you've got the form. I mean, I guess everybody needs to read the form and look through it and see if there's anything on it. If there's something on it that doesn't fit our situation, there's no sense in asking the question. You know, it's a general form, so I mean, if we're gonna use, I don't care, we can use it.
how are we gonna get, to Darren's point, how are we gonna get feedback from employees, or what's the method? If we want the employees to give feedback to us before we do this evaluation, let's just take the form as is. It's a good starting point, okay?
I think
If we don't like it,
make
we can
comments.
change it during the time that we're sitting down doing it, right?
I think there's room to make comments on it. I think if I remember right, Earl said it's been a while.
So take the form as is and hand one to the employees and
And then we can
And what if they
use
don't
that for
fill
our
it out?
evaluation.
they don't fill it out, then they're not included. I mean, then their opinion doesn't matter, I guess, if they,
So then if the only ones you get are the ones that have got a
Negative.
negative, then
we'll make it mandatory they turn them back in. I mean, I would think if I was evaluating you and I had something bad to say, I would turn in. If I had something good to say, I would wanna know, I mean, I would think that they should
Got number ratings.
look at it either way, I mean, in my opinion, I mean, what benefit is it to them to not do it?
Come on, Scott, weigh in, tell us something. Give us some info.
I was looking at the form. I mean, it's.
Do you think
the
that's what
same one.
would make sense to hand out to the employees, or should we just ask the employees to give input?
Reading some of these questions, it looks like maybe we could tailor them more. It all depends, I mean, are we, and I think you already stated that, I mean, purpose of evaluation is find where their weakness is and try to help them to improve.
Or use their strong points
Their
to
strong points, right?
benefit them too.
A lot of these questions, I don't know that really pertain to the city facilities and stuff. I mean, there's a few in there, but a lot of it looks like it's kind of tailored towards the council more than it is. So I think if we decide tonight that we're gonna use this Manchester evaluation, I think we need to maybe tailor it a little bit. We're gonna hand it to all employees. That's my advice.
Scott, when you said that, John Deere was an evaluation of supervisors, are they talking about just the next
It's more
level?
of and it's more of a survey.
The survey?
And the survey is more general of it covers many topics, but one of them is your supervisor, you know, how well you work with your supervisor, how well is your.
Sandy said
Well,
in
it's
HR, she would
worker,
take on the
things like
task
that.
of tweaking the Manchester for.
But also, it's a whole, you know, what,
Right.
how do you feel that, how do you like your job, you know, what can you do to improve, and there's.
So it's an employee satisfaction survey.
You bet, but we use that information, and we actually
Yeah.
make improvements.
Did Becky provide anything like that when you guys were doing your HR stuff? Did she have anything like that at that time?
You mean Kelly?
Or Kelly,
I would have to go back and, I don't remember if
just,
she did or not.
I know that she interviewed every single employee,
Mhm.
you know, and she did an extensive sit down one-on-one with every employee back then. That's been a year and a half, 2 years? I don't know.
A little over a year.
Okay, 6 months.
Our individual performance is based off of goals that are set at the beginning of the year. And that is strictly what my performance is rated on that year.
And that was what I expected we would start to institute now that Danny's here for public works is.
Oh, and I think it's
doing
great.
that stuff.
I think we need, that way we're all on board. I mean, and that kind of covers the next topic that we're getting ready to talk about. Is
Yeah.
where do you see the goals and our visions for things? And we can have a big overview goals and visions and then start chipping away at what's Dan's job, what's Chris's job, and
And
how can
that's-
we all reach to
That,
meet that goal?
this, having those goals, would be the input that I would have to establish goals for the department directors, for instance.
Yeah.
And assist them in actually framing issues as far as who relates to more implementation type goals as opposed to something that's a little broader than that. But, you know, if we have these implementation goals that I set up with department directors, then they have the responsibility simultaneously to direct people that they direct to goals
Right.
themselves, stuff that we've never done here. But that's how I would view this, and I would view the evaluation that I get from you all as just something that then I would transfer down. And assuming that this evaluation is really based upon what we want to get done for the city, and realistically, as you said, the next agenda item is really the centering point about all of this, is we distill this from more broad terms to very implementable terms once it gets down to the department and the division level for that matter. I think that's the essence of a good evaluation to begin with, this is that we are operating from a standard and an understanding that everybody has to begin. And I mean, you all can do what you want to do, but my evaluation, but the fact is that how this really works is that we deal with goals.
A lot of difference between an employee satisfaction survey and an evaluation of the
Right.
lead administrator.
I mean, I don't know that we've ever set goals for Gary to meet or anything. But if we got, I think in the contract, it says we're supposed to evaluate you, we gotta come up with something and.
It has to be measured, that's the other piece. You
Yeah.
can't just have an arbitrary,
Yeah.
do real good, you know, that's kind of hard to measure.
Well, and when I was hired, we all understood that we're kind of going through a shakedown cruise anyway. Because we haven't had a city administrator. We're trying to understand the culture of what this means in this organization, in the departments, in this community. I think that this is a very opportune time to talk about that. Ultimately though, the people who make the decision about my fate are you six, technically 5 plus the mayor, who doesn't have a vote, but has certainly influence over the people who do. But that's typically how it works.
I just think it would help us as council to get whether we use the information a lot or not, to get the information from the employees to see where they're at, you know? If they've got a problem, you know, are they not telling us they have a problem? You know, we can maybe get that information out of them through this process. You know, do they have an issue with somebody or something that we don't know about or that they're afraid to talk about, but will, you know, maybe this will help get that information out so that we can address it. Maybe there's issues that need addressed that we're not aware of. I think that information would be good to have.
I likewise want that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to,
Which is why we can do this in closed session, but I mean, I got issues too.
yeah, and I mean, I'm not excluding anybody. That's
Right,
why
no, I
I think
understand.
we just need to have everybody included.
The process works when there's true dialogue established.
Yeah. And like you said, it's new to everybody, this
Right.
position and everything, so I think, you know, if we don't like the process, we can always change it.
I think that the thing that's probably a little bit difficult here is that we are just now, I was saying this today when we were interviewing, we're really on the backside of going through this reorganization. We're just now getting that completed. And when I came on here, I said, this isn't gonna happen overnight, it's gonna take some time. But we're getting there. I mean, we can talk about that, but I think that the real point here is that what we do this time might be a lot different than what you did the next time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with this business about establishing goals. We've been freelancing this so far, and we've been freelancing it before I ever showed up.
So do we wanna use this form? Do we wanna make changes to it, leave it as it is?
Sammy said as HR, she would go through the form and tailor it to fit an employee response.
So bring it back to the next meeting, approve it and get it done? I mean, what's,
Then you go to do it, so then we're talking about July, right?
it'd be probably the meeting, the first, July, for close to July would be when we would have the.
First meeting in July is the 5th or the 6th.
Unless you wanna approve it or just let her tweak it and go ahead and do it.
It's up to you.
I have faith in her.
We're just gonna we're gonna see all the information anyway.
Yeah.
So, Sammy, if you feel confident that you can do it, and we won't beat you up.
I mean, if you want to, we can look at it, if you got any questions or anything, I mean, we can. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Try it?
I can just sample. You can just sample what they use in terms of what that looks like. The input that I was talking about, then Councilman Garrett was talking about was, it's an overall survey. Do you have any direct contact with city clerk? And then A, B, and C questions that, do you have any direct contact with city administrator? And then you ask about communication, you ask about all those factors that allows input into, so that they can talk about it, and then it moves up the chain, then they handle all the issues that are addressed. It gives you kind of the input side so that you can make informed decisions going forward. I like that. So but that's just and that's used mostly in the public sector for these types of things, so. We're a little smaller than that, I understand, yeah.
You gotta start somewhere.
So, we discussed it.
We got the direction we're going. Discuss short-term and long-term goals. Is this topic gonna be a long topic? I mean.
I think you need a meeting for this by itself.
We don't have a calendar in this room either.
Got an iron.
have one here.
Sandy's gonna look at
Better than the computer calendar.
Do you want this facilitated, Mayor?
I think in the long term, I mean, I think in the near future, yeah, I think, first of all, I think we need to get together. I mean, do you think we need to facilitate it when or do we need to be aware of everybody's ideas and try to come up with a core group of ideas and then facilitate it?
Well, that's how it's done. I mean, you try to.
Facilitator helps.
A facilitator pulls it together. I mean, I've done this, but I don't know whether you want me to do this with you or you bring somebody from the outside, because sometimes facilitation in this regard brings in the points of view of the main administrators of the organization simultaneously, because we have obviously perspectives too. I don't know if you want to do it that way, but the fact is that's what facilitation typically, that's how it typically happens. And that, you know, if everybody's got a whole bunch of stuff, you know, can we coalesce around a few points that ultimately everybody agrees upon? There might be somebody that's I got this issue right here that's really important to me, and everybody else goes, not so much. So how do we deal with that? You know, that's what facilitation does. I think that if you really want to be effective, the process itself is half the deal, because it gives you a sense of consensus building.
We're gonna go through an example of this with Cadmus and the energy planning process. And I was gonna mention that later, that July 2nd, we'll have an open meeting. It's a facilitated discussion to talk about goals, short-term and long-term, with regards to the energy plan. So you'll very soon have the opportunity to experience it with that particular topic, and then give you some perspective about whether that's what you want to do with other.
Do you have a recommendation
Of
for a facilitator for this type of?
Yeah, the instituted decision-making has worked with us in the past. They're pretty good. I think Northern Iowa has a group too, Iowa Area Development Group might, I could think of 4 or 5 that I've worked with in the past that are all do a great job.
I can get a list of that kind of thing from the league. Pat Callahan does it. There's all kinds of people out there that do this. You might want to focus on those that have had more experience with municipal government as opposed to just general facilitation. But the real point here is that a third party trying to draw all this consensus is what the real goal is.
So we just give you direction to try to find somebody and set up time so we can get it started?
Well, I think probably what we ought to do is just present 1 or 2 or 3 options to you to consider for a financial selection. That's not gonna happen like tomorrow. I mean, it's gonna take, it'd probably be in July before
At
we
least
get
30 days.
I know, but I mean,
Trying to break it's kind
it's-
of getting dry in here.
well, do it on 10 o'clock too.
Well, I'm trying to make things roll.
So we'll take that as direction.
Got 28 items, actually.
Consider renewal of Class C beer permit with Sunday sales for Jay's One Stop.
Move to approve.
Second.
Earl,
No.
Right, Jay.
John,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Scott, Darren,
Yes.
Consider approval of retail permit application for cigarette, tobacco, nicotine vapor for the following: Casey's General Store, Dollar General, Jay's One Stop, Route 63 Quick Stop.
Move to approve. Second.
Scott.
Yes.
John.
Yeah.
Jack,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Earl,
No.
Consider appointment of new police officer and approve attendance at ILEA.
Yeah, we had some testing, physical agility and all the requirements for a new police officer, and we have a committee, and we'd like to recommend Alyssa Murray. She's here. She wanted to give a speech, but I talked her out of it.
So, I'd like to appoint Alyssa Murray as the new police officer for the city of Bloomfield.
So moved.
Second.
Jack,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Considered location, yeah,
Welcome. Thank you.
we're gonna swear her in later. After the meeting.
Swear at her.
Consider and discuss location of next meeting.
I think my motion at the last meeting was that all subsequent meetings would be here unless changed. So
This is a motion to change.
Does anybody want to change it?
I'd like to go back to the council team.
I don't know about the rest of them, but I can hear much better in this room than we ever could at the council chambers.
How about you, Ernie?
What?
Can you hear better here?
You talk up a little. Parking ain't too good, but I can live with it.
You're right out front.
What?
Totally.
You said you're right out
front.
You bet, I got here early.
Approved claims as presented.
Move to approve.
Second.
Quite a bunch of them. No, that's a lot.
They tried to put something out of line and I couldn't.
We almost have $750,000 budget.
30 days.
Well, it was 4 weeks between meetings too. Wonder if I made the list.
I didn't remember. Yeah, I did. Make a motion, let's go along.
I made a
Been done,
motion.
it's been seconded.
We're waiting on, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No. He usually lets them read, they'll work as a year or so before he sends them to the academy, so we'll approve that. The academy, whenever it gets closer to that time. Any public comments?
Yes. Getting back to the evaluation of employees, I couldn't hear too good, but I heard a little. What's wrong with you guys asking some taxpayers for their opinion? We're paying the bill and look at the money you guys have wasted in the last 2 years. I'm interested in somebody that thinks of the taxpayer a little bit. Nip these things like streetscape in the bud before it costs us a fortune.
Here's the problem with the public. The public being involved is you would have to allow everybody to fill one out.
Well,
And
what's
then
wrong
it'd be a
with
year
that?
before we can get through them all.
There won't be very many. How many people's here tonight?
You think it ought to be just whoever wants to fill one out should or
Just
can?
guys like me.
You don't need to wait for an evaluation, Eric. You can just say it all the time.
Every 2 weeks, Ernie, you're evaluating.
What did you say?
Every 2 weeks, you're evaluating.
Every 2 weeks, I'm evaluated?
Right here. No, you're evaluating us.
You bet.
I know.
Just keep these costs down.
I'm
Quit
trying.
creating, places for people to work that we don't need them.
Our city taxes are some of the lowest in the state.
Keep that away.
I want to.
Keep that away.
That's our main goal. Any more public comments?
Yeah. For your goals, Jeff Anderson. For your goals, Pat Callahan came in several years ago. Had a meeting out at the fire station. All the city department heads and others were there. We set down goals of what the department heads thought they needed. Basically, what he was doing was a capital improvement progress. And then he evaluated all of them on charts around the room, set timely goals. When do you want to have this done? When do you want to have this done? When do you want to have this done? And he did a very, very good job of doing that. And everybody was involved, and when he got done, everybody knew what was going on.
So you're saying he would be a good tool to use for.
Very much so.
Thanks. Is there any more public comments?
Two things. We thought that we'd have the audit ready tonight. Probably a good thing we didn't have the audit ready tonight, given the link. But we will have the audit ready for the next council meeting. We will get the distribution of the printed audit out to you way in advance of the packet. Secondly, I thought that we'd have a TIF project here for council review. I didn't get information from the property owner that is making the request on TIF until after hours on Friday. In discussions with Ehlers and Cooney, who are consultants and legal advisors for TIF, we are coming up with a proposal that we're going to find out whether the property owner is accepting of. And if that be the case, then we would bring it to you. And then we would, at the same time, we would have to publish a public hearing for it. And then vote on it following that public hearing notification. So we probably are seeing a 2-meeting setup here for approval of TIF by, again, fulfilling public hearing requirements established by the state for approval of TIF projects. But that will be also on that. And that's all I got.
Danny?
Yeah, so I keep brief. Just to kind of brief by division, with electrical division distribution, we're starting out, pole replacement starts Mondays. We're working on 25 poles here in the next few weeks, replacing those poles and tree trimming. So you're gonna see a lot of activity around with that. And then, of course, we had a issue at the girls softball field. They had to replace the switch box out there, so we had to burn up out there. And so we took care of that. Streets department, of course, we've been working on hot patching the last few days. We've also poured some concrete and worked on that around the pool and also out on Parkview. So kind of working on some street issues there. Sewer division, of course, we looked at, had some lift station repair out there off of Gregory on the corner. We got a pump out. We're working on that right now. It'll be getting repaired, rebuilt, brought back in. We hosted RFQ for the engineer firms, of course, on the sewer thing over the last week, and those are due tomorrow. We'll be scoring those coming up. And then, of course, the building's up, and if you've seen it, it looks real nice in there, and they've been putting 10 up indoors today. So inside 10 indoors. We're pretty close to being done on that. So we're getting there. Engine power room, of course, we hosted, I brought PRVN Associates engineering firm come in. We kind of talked about metering and panel updating, upgrading, and replacement in there. So we need to look at some metering and dispatching and that type of stuff and tracking, so we can help some future planning with that too. So just kind of brought them in to look at that. Gas section, of course, repaired a leak over in East Arkansas earlier this week. And then, just read my notes here. Oh, and also we had somebody on the square backed into a gas meter, so we had to replace that. So fix that. Water division has been flushing hydrants. If you notice that, we've been flushing all the hydrants here on schedule. And then also what's going to come out in your next billing cycle of bills, the public's going to see their consumer confidence report, which is annually due. So we'll be coming out talking about the qualification of water and everything. That's all been completed, and that'll come out in the next billing cycle. And then, in general, just met today with, had the League of Cities Iowa, our workman's comp, Ed Morrison was in today. We had a meeting talking about, safety and stuff, working on that. In lines with safety, I have, working with IMU, I'm gonna have a presentation will come next council meeting, talk to you about some, the plan of safety I put together for the year, for the next training plan out. We talked about, he's gonna come in and present on that, and part of that is we're gonna have a risk assessment come through, so we're gonna walk through risk assessment, all our equipment, facilities, and personnel. And on top of that, an OSHA binder review, to kind of get a baseline established. We don't have a baseline established where we're at, so I can get that OSHA binder compliance and get that updated, so we're working on that. And so kind of this next few weeks, we're focusing a lot heavy on safety and bringing in compliance. And with that also, we've instituted shop time, so we're back doing shop time on Friday, about 1 to 4. And again, that's some stand down time, get equipment back, do some PM maintenance, get on schedule and start working on that. So we kind of started that implementation last couple of weeks. East Street Bridge Culvert, waiting on the top hole to come back. Once the top hole comes back, Prince Raniker, then we should be able to put that out for design. So we're close to finishing that up. Hope we get that back this week coming up. So once you do that. And the last thing on the council, I'll bring again for next week too, thing I'm gonna add in there is I'm at a point where I need to send some notices to homeowners basically on disrupted streets and curbs. So we have about 8 or 9 areas out there that need to be, according with, they're not in compliance with ordinances, and we need to send them notices to repair the streets and curbs that they disrupted as far back as 2 years ago. They were never filled in. According to our ordinance, it's supposed to be repaired within 30 days. It's not done. Our ordinance says if it's not repaired within 30 days, we can actually fix it and charge them. So again, going back on that. The agency thing, gonna look at, notifying them first, give them official notification in the mail, give them another 30 days to fix it. If they don't, then we'll go in and fix it and then charge them. But I'm gonna bring that presentation, those numbers to you first to look at them, just kind of see what's out there. I'll even have pictures if you want, and then see that. Other than that's what we're kind of working on.
When's the contractor meeting?
They haven't had it scheduled yet. It was kind of these ordinances, so we're waiting on these, this ordinance come in, but that was one thing I wanted to work on. Bridge and systems out this week, so I definitely want to get that scheduled. I'll have a date for you on the next.
And then the bonding limit, we've talked about, maybe raising it.
Right, and actually talked with League of Cities today about that too, and they agreed, there's some of those limits that need to be raised, and I kind of asked them for some feedback on what they
That
want to.
might fall under the fees and permits type stuff.
Right. But on the positive side too, the more of them now know about that, so that's just getting out there, we're getting more bonds and everything in, so a lot of people, I think, Sandy's seen a lot more come in to her, and we'll start tracking those, what's in there, so definitely getting a lot of those in for contractors, so it's good.
Just wanted to let you know about, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, Cadmus probably has reached out to some of you and is doing some interviews, Ryan Cook. We're at the beginning processes of doing a long-term energy plan. The kickoff meeting will be July 2nd here at 6 o'clock. And we'll get official invitations and notices out. It'll be a public meeting, so just want to give you a heads up on that. And we've got 2 Vista members, so we've got 5 Vista members, but 2 that are working directly with the city. And we're going to begin going out and working again on doing energy audits, but a little different style, not blower door tests, but instead more of a comprehensive conversation and education about energy use and appliances and what opportunities there are for saving money and making your home more comfortable. So if any of you they're eager to get into homes and test their stuff. So if any of you would like to have an energy audit, please let me know. Thanks.
The state has, instituted a water excise tax. And effective July 1, we will start charging that on our water utility. But since they're starting that, they're also taking away the sales tax on the water utility. So people won't see a difference in their bills, but there will be another line on there that says excise tax instead of sales tax on the water. Just another report to file and tax to pay.
They're offsetting the sales tax on the tax side.
Yes, completely just off out.
I don't think so.
Is that all you got?
That's all I got.
Chief?
Well, it's been a really busy summer so far. So extra help will be great. And When do you want to meet as far as this committee that we just had for selecting a police officer? Is there a set date you guys are looking at?
Guess we gotta form the committee.
We can do that next meeting then.
Let's do that next meeting. We'll form the committee and set a time.
Okay, sounds good. That's all I got.
Fire chief. Council, anybody on the council got any updates on any meetings?
I did get an email from Diane Bales asking me as a council member to write a letter in support for her. She's applying for a grant to do some work on the Welcome Center, and I think the grant is gonna be submitted to the phone company. So I'll be writing a letter in support of that. I think we wanna replace some shutters and some wallpaper that's getting kind of tattered and stuff there, so.
I got another question. What's the status on the old house down there by the daycare? I've been on that now for 6 years.
That house is on the top of our list to get taken care
A
of.
lot of coons have moved in there.
No, we're hoping the price of coons goes up.
That would help. There's a lot of them in there. And little kids have been, looks like the kids have been playing there too.
We're working on getting that taken care of, Ernie.
Appreciate that. I hope I don't die before you get something done.
I hope so
I hope we
too.
don't. For mayor comments, we got a thank you from the Davis County Historical Society for choosing them as one of the recipients of our hotel motel money. And we also got a certificate of recognition from the Davis County Development Corporation for our generous donation last meeting. I'm tired, so.
Who's adjourned?
Oh,